Yeah, to give you a bit of a context of what we do, I have got a couple of slides of what this meeting actually is, what the history is, and what it represents, and then we're going to do a quick round just around the room to know who's in the room. We usually do that with 20 people in the room. It's going to be a bit more challenging with 50 people. Basically, the whole agenda that we set up is going to be very challenging with 50 people in the room, but still, all of them are important topics, so we need to go through them. So, General Assembly of Implementers, we first got a couple of slides with the administration. So, Code of Conduct. This basically says that buildingSMART is non-discriminatory and open to everyone. That's why the non-technical people are here. We can't keep them out. I want to set the right tone here. And this one is also very important for this meeting. Safe harbor statements. It's important that you read this. I always summarize this as anything in this room is speculative. All of the people that are in the room that are software vendors that are trading at a public stock exchange, they are here free to speculate. So everything they do, don't buy their stocks, don't buy their products based on what you hear in this room. This is all speculation. So if you decide to buy any kind of stock or products based on what you hear in this room, it's your own problem. This is very important because this needs to be the meeting where everyone can be able to speak freely. This goes for all of the meetings, all of the 2 days. Sometimes we're going to repeat it just to make sure that you got it, but extremely important. That brings us to the recordings. Most sessions are recorded and publicly available after the meeting. We also have people watching at the webinar live, if we can get it up and running. And the recordings and also the slides that you see will all be published at this link. If you registered, you also get an email from Dan, who basically does all of the work to make sure that you know when it's online. Also, because this is such a collaborative group, we always ask if we can share your details. So at registration, you already had the attendee list with names. We also like to share all of the phone numbers and email addresses with everyone. If you do not like your contact details to be shared, tell Dan before lunch. That's actually the next slide. Tell Dan before lunch if you don't want it to be shared. If you don't tell him, then we're going to share that somewhere these days as well. Then again, thank you, Dassault. Obviously, these meetings are typically hosted and sponsored by the vendors. So we had Procore half a year ago, we had Autodesk a year ago, we have Dassault now, and there will be next meetings in February and in fall. So it's twice a year, it's face-to-face. Like I said, there will be some recordings and webinars, but the really sensitive topics are not being recorded. And it's always hosted by the vendors. So next time is 7 and 8 of February at the Oracle Innovation Lab near Chicago. I've already heard a couple of comments that people are very happy to do Chicago in winter. So I guess we don't have 50 people in the room then. And the next one after that is August, Trimble Headquarters, Colorado. So yeah, as you see, we already have a year ahead. If you are a vendor in the room and you think it's your turn, we're not going to pressure anyone, but if you think it's your turn, then please let us know. We can schedule for 2025 as well. So then we go to introductions. We have the webinar and everything's up and running, right? Okay, let me skip this part first. Let me do a bit of the let me do the a bit of a context heading first. So the reason why this is called General Assembly of Implementers, in hindsight should have called it Implementers Assembly or something else, is because we have a lot of implementers groups that work relatively independent from each other. There's a, I'm not sure if you know that there's a, every fortnight there's a API BCF group online meeting There's a BCF group that is, an IDS group that is developing. There's a bSDD team. So we have all of these teams that are already having problems enough on their own, focusing to trying to solve those problems on their own. But we really need those teams to also engage and interact with each other because everything's connected. As you will also know or see in these 2 days, there's a strong relationship between IFC, bSDD, IDS. So I wouldn't call it we need to twist their arms and force them to talk to each other, but that's basically what it is. So that's why these 2 days have been brought to life, and also a couple of weeks before the summit. All of these topics are very integrated, overlapping topics, many interfaces. So the General Assembly is updating each other and sharing progress to make sure we have this one integrated, interactive OpenBIM workflow. So that's the context. So yeah, like I said before, usually it's the different known implementers coming together. It grew a bit with interested implementers, and today we're at a point where it grew with also non-implementers. So maybe this is a good time for you to show your colors. Are you an implementer? Are you here to listen? Are you here to try to influence us? Everyone's welcome. Again, we're non-discriminatory, so you feel free to be here. But we're just very, very interested to see. So I see a lot of phones already up. I just hope that we still have the right code as well. Yeah, I see first ones coming in. Well, this is cool, actually. Who's the policymaker? All right, so let's try to, like I said, usually we go around the room with 20 people. Let's try to do it with 50 as well. Looking at that side, Claudio, can I start with you? Just please, briefly, quickly, name, association, interest.
My name is...
Yeah, speak up.
My name is Claudio Benghi. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Claudio Benghi. I am affiliated with Northumbria University in Newcastle and with XBIM Limited in a number of ways. I'm all part of the XBIM development team. Today I'm here to present a few tools that we have available for the community around IDS.
Hi everyone, good morning. Evandro Alfieri, buildingSMART International, Italian, living in the Netherlands. Don't ask. Yeah, I'll keep it at that.
Good morning. So my name is Rémi Dornier. I'm leading AC industry in Dassault Systèmes.
Good morning again, Franco Volca, Chair of BSF.
Hi everyone. So Clément Chaudat, I'm working in Rémi's team at Dassault Systèmes in the technical industry team, basically.
Hello everyone, Victor Gerbert, a colleague of Clément, so working in the industry in Dassault Systèmes.
Hi everyone, Michel Rive. I'm running a company that's called Vianova. We do consulting for BIM for infrastructure projects. And besides this, I'm running the IFC for tunneling initiatives on behalf of BSI, which covers geotechnics and excavation support and systems.
Hello everyone, Jean-François Page, Bouygues Construction.
Morning, Frédéric Grand, working for CoBuilder, which is a Norwegian company.
Lars Fredlund in CoBuilder, but also representing manufacturers, so Construction Products Europe manufacturing side.
Christophe Castin, I'm now retired. I represent MIND for the Association of End User involved in buildingSMART France and buildingSMART International.
Hello everyone, Sergei Vishnevetsky, Development Director of Open Design Alliance.
Hi everyone, Stefan Jaut, the hardcode from Germany, and also being part of the IFC development teams for the past few years.
Hi everyone, Michelangelo Cianciulli from H Software from Italy. We are software implementers.
Hello everyone, Alfonso D'Urso, Italian engineer working for H.
Greg Schleisner, work for HOK and based out of the US. I'm here as a co-leader as a technical room regarding IFC5 topics.
Alexander Warp, end user, WaterNet. We use IFC for integration in our asset management systems.
Anouk van Otterlo, based, also work for WaterNet, also an end user.
Arne Toet, BIM consult from BIM, and also a colleague from Anouk and Alex from WaterNet.
Hello, Franck Laurenceau, Dassault Systèmes, Katia R&D. I'm working on linear infrastructure.
Laurent Santiquet, Dassault Systèmes, in charge of software development for Katia R&D construction.
Arnaud Deslandes, Dassault Systèmes, responsible for the interoperability solutions.
Hello, Florian Porcher, Dassault Systèmes R&D, working also in interop, especially on IFC, STEP, and other standard formats.
Hello everyone, Guillaume Mongonio, Dassault Systèmes, part of the R&D team to implement IFC.
Morning everyone, Ismail Emberik, Legend Construction, so we're basically end users with a lot of interest in open file formats.
Ruben de Kuiper, I work for Brixis in Belgium. I'm product owner for Brixcat BIM, so implementer.
Hello, Frédéric Pedredis from DataKit, which provide conversion tools.
Laure Bédu from DataKit, software engineer and yes, interested in implementation and interoperability of IFC.
Hello, my name is Nadia Sugar. I'm part of the interfaces team of Allplan, Nemetschek Group, dealing mainly with IFC.
Hi, Tom van Diggelen, working at Cubus, working on BIM Corp Zoom, mostly interested in IFC5.
Jean Gual, French Public Administration, involved in software bridge analysis.
Hi, I'm Enho Velez. I work at Autodesk, mostly on Revit IFC as a product owner and developer.
My name is Bernhard Bock, and I'm working in the field of water management.
Hi, Yushen Wang, Director Technique in bSDD France, work a lot of topic in data dictionary and also a developer.
Hello, everyone. Pedro Diaz Cocero. I am part of the architecture, engineering, and construction industry team with Dassault Systèmes.
Hey, Pasi Paasiala from Solibri. I've been working with BCF API, Documents API, and IDS.
Hello, Marco Ripatti from Magicat Group. Our business area is MEP. So that is what we do, and IFC implementation is my area.
Hi, I'm Geert Esselink. I work with Evandro and Leon and a couple of others with the IFC validation service.
I'm Artur Tomczak. I'm the bSDD product manager with buildingSMART. And apart from that, I'm also a researcher and structural designer.
Dan Little from buildingSMART, helping to coordinate a meeting. I think that's us. Oh, Alice.
I'm Alice Leo in the team of Remy in AEC industry in Dassault Systèmes. They're happy to help work with Dan and Pedro for on the event organization.
So thank you all. Did we have everyone? Did we miss anyone? Yeah, again, thank you all for being here, and again, thank you to Dassault for hosting us. So with all of those introductions and context out of the way, I think it's important we dive into a a bit of what we're actually going to do these days. So we have a packed agenda. I hope you all realize how packed this is, looking at the topics. So we're definitely going to run out of time somewhere. So it's going to be a little bit of flexible. So if you need a break and you still see me enthusiastically on a roll, just cut me off. We're going to have a break. This is not that formal. So please, please give your input and feedback. So for today, we did introductions. I'm going to give a bit of a status update on standards and services. That's going to be quick. We're doing that every half year, so the people who've been coming here for a while already would only notice the actual updates. This is going to be recorded, so you can watch it back. So that's why I'm going over there quick, and that is to save us some time for the workshop. So what we want to do is actually you shouting requirements and properties, and then collaboratively creating an IDS. Or actually, we want to challenge you to create an IDS with the beta tools you already have available. Then Claudio comes up after the break to present the IDS Audit tool, where you can check if the IDS you created after us all shouting requirements is actually valid. Then we have some updates on IFC 403 and Implanters Forum and bSDD updates. So this first part up until lunch is going to be us overflowing you with a lot of updates and information. That's all going to be really quick. If you have any questions, please feel free to just find the people during your breaks and during lunch. And all of this is being recorded so you can watch it back at your own speed. After lunch, it's really going to be much more hands-on and even more technical. So validation service and functional part discussion and this algorithm discussion is highly technical. So also for the people that are not so technical, feel free to just network in the room next door, ask for other people the questions of things that you heard before. So feel free to spend it at your own time. You're also free to stay here, of course. I'm just giving you a fair warning. And tomorrow we've got this IFC workshop fully driven by Greg this time and his team. And after lunch, we're continuing on the workshop part where we then maybe have IFC files with the IDS and are going to continue to check those and potentially also look at what the relationship is with Open API initiatives and BCF. And obviously, we then have the tour of the playground, which I'm very much looking forward to. So again, to set the tone, I know this is a cheeky slide, but this is not the buildingSMART anymore that creates the standards, throws them over the fence to the vendors, and then vendors complain about it for years. This is the meeting where we really need and want input from the vendors. So this is where you take the steering wheel and you tell buildingSMART which direction we should be taking. So that happened last time as well, which is difficult for us. I remember we had just to give you an example, I remember we had a question, if clients or governments mandate the use of IFC, what is the legal definition of IFC? Where are the boundaries? So these are the kind of topics and input that we expect from these meetings. We take that, we pretend we didn't hear it for a while, but we're definitely still working on that. So those are just a couple of examples. I do hope that the input is also more technical and directive, but please, this really is the meeting where buildingSMART shows that it's a membership-driven organization. All members have a vote. Just feel free to chip in, but please keep it respectful as well. It's not the meeting where buildingSMART tells vendors how they should be doing it. It's also not the meeting where vendors tell each other how they should be doing it. So this is a nice, respectful meeting. So these are the parts in the agenda where we really expect input from vendors. I already warned a couple of you that if you don't speak up, I'm going to point at you and tell you you need to speak up. So please do that. There's also parts in the agenda that are more informative. So much more. These are the parts that are workshop. So like I said, we expect you to shout some properties. We're collaboratively going to create an IDS. We also want to challenge you to then create an IDS XML, come back with that after the break. So this is going to be challenging because it's very much time pressured. This is also a little bit of an experiment because we want to do these things at the summit as well. So imagine 400 people in an auditorium at the summit shouting requirements they want for sustainability or products, whatever. And then the vendors are being challenged to create an IDS. A couple of hours later, there will be an IFC. A couple of hours later, there will be a validation. So this more hands-on showing instead of telling is something we want to experiment at the summit. That's 5 weeks away. So this is a bit of a lightweight experiment if that is actually feasible. And then indeed the informative parts where we just talk and you fall asleep. On the agenda, the workflows. So this is the part where it usually starts to go more rapid. Also because these slides are the same for a year and a half now. Do you remember when you made them, like June 2022 or so? They haven't changed. They're always the same. They're too small to read. We have this link to Miro board where you can zoom in, but nobody does. Yeah, nothing changed because all of these developments are always going slower than we hope. So nothing new here. The only new part, like I said, that we want to do is to actually do this. So if Artur, we can't do two screens, right? So during the email that you got in the introductions, there was a link with to a box folder, and in that box folder you found an IDS file and an IFC file. That could be a starting point if you keep quiet now for the next 10 minutes. But if you don't keep quiet, then we can just try to create an IDS file on the fly here. So let's try to do that. Yeah, I was actually going to. Usually Dan does that already before I finish the sentence, but he walked out, so I think you saw it coming. So usually we share the links that I talk about in the Zoom meeting. Usually everyone's in the Zoom meeting, but if you're not. Yeah, that's right as well. We've got a new Zoom link. Now this is, there's Dan. Can you, are you in the, someone will. Is everyone in the Zoom meeting? So yeah, I can share you this link, but that's not really helpful.
Everyone should have received an email from Dan with some links from 3DS and the passwords.
All right. So there was a new Zoom link sent out by Dan at 9:24. You should have a link in your email. And there's also last Friday, Dan shared an email with this link as well. So we have the S1 building. I'm not sure if you know this, but this is actually a building that has been built in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and the contractor decided to freely release these files for public use. And I guess my internet connection is quite slow. So this is this is an IFC file we can use for this workshop. And there's also an IDS file included. So feel free to use that as a starting point. But what I also want to do is make sure that we integrate the bSDD part into this. Whose sound is on? Ah.
You have the link to blogs on the Zoom link. You go there. In your email as well.
So imagine we have a construction of an apartment complex in Eindhoven. What kind of requirements do you have for such a building? So it has walls, it has windows. Shout something. What requirement do we need for a wall of an apartment complex? Fire rating. Okay. Then let's search for fire rating in the bSDD. There's only one result here, which is interesting. So we can now use this defined fire rating. So as you see, a fire rating has objects where it's linked to. It has a certain description. It has measures. It's in this case owned by buildingSMART, and it has this identifier as well. So we can use this fire rating definition if we mean that this fire rating is what we actually need. So fire rating, since it only comes up with IFC results, might not be the best example. Are there any other things a wall needs to have? Thickness. So thickness, as you see, brings up more results. There's thickness definitions in IFC on class levels and on properties. But for example, we also have this ETIM definition, universal types. So when I filter on ETIM and I go to properties, these are all of the defined properties in ETIM for thickness. So now, for example, do you mean beam thickness, base thickness, built-in wall thickness? We can go there and we can also see this is defined in millimeters. It is typically linked to a certain ETIM classification. So if we mean this thickness, if you want to require this thickness, we take this identifier and we add it. So we haven't reached the IDS part yet, but as you see, this is one of the use cases where we can use the bSDD. There's a lot of already defined stuff in there. There's a lot of already defined stuff in there that you can use. So you don't have to reinvent your own properties with your own definitions. Yeah, this is all about interoperability. So software, the chance that software already implemented known properties of an existing standard is higher than it understanding your own made up properties. So it's highly recommended to reuse the properties that already exist. As you see, when we search something, the IFC properties come up first in the search results. They have a higher priority because it is a stronger standard. And then lower down, things like Uniclass, ETIM, which are also decently strong standards, are the next one in the search results. And then the others are even lower. So we're currently thinking about also verifying this data. So at the moment, everyone can just publish their standards. This is going to be the theme of the day, right? Everyone can just publish their standards. Yeah. This is a joke only people that are here for 20 years understand. We're thinking about, so at the moment, everyone can just publish their own standards. There's contractors that publish their own internal standards to share it with their subcontractors. And we want to have some kind of a verification to give it a certain status. So we discussed yesterday also with the French chapter, we want to set up some kind of a verification procedure where you get this star to say that it's verified and it's more trustworthy than things that are not verified. There might be 1 star, there might be silver and gold stars, we don't know yet, but there will be something that that gives you a bit more of a confidence of the status of these publications. And also these stars would then affect how high the result is in the search. Any questions? So the idea, if you want to define requirements, don't do a brainstorm in a room to come up with 80 properties of a door. Just search the already existing properties of already existing standards. Obviously, we think IFC is the more stronger standard. So if there's anything there, please use that. But if you can't find it in IFC, because not everything is in IFC, it will never be, then at least look at standards like Uniclass, or depending on your country, in the Netherlands, NLSFB. Uniclass is, I think, more UK and Australia based. Co-class could be a standard in your region. So please use those first, and only if you then cannot find the things you need, then you add your own property in a requirement. You have a question?
What about translation in different languages?
Yeah.
The tools I have now, I can translate it to any language I want. So what happens?
Yeah, so you can also publish translations, as you see here. So eTIM, I know eTIM has a couple of translations, but I don't know which version. Yeah, translations can also be, yeah, so I know that some of these domains, some of these dictionaries in the bSDD also published additional languages like Dutch, French, English, etc.
The question was slightly different. You can use the English definition, you use DeepL or wherever other tools, and translate it in the language I want.
So if you require things, so in an IDS, for example, you use this identifier where you say, I want to have, in this case, an industry-related tester, and this is the one I mean. This is the unique identifier. This is the URI. Then you say you need that, and that's, I don't know what the actual property name in IFC is of this, but it has a property name and it has a pset name. That's then how you publish it in IFC. And then everyone can go to the bSDD because this link is in there and read what it means in a different language. So the bSDD is a publication mechanism, publication dictionary, where these unique identifiers are the things that you refer to when you exchange actual data in IFC. And then because it is a unique link, you go there. That's also why it has this copy paste button. When I click this, it is this URI is being copied. And when I go there, so when I find this in an IFC file, for example, I go there and then I can read everything about that property. I get it there.
Where would you find that in the IFC file?
Good question. Maybe we can Google. Is this the, you're getting nervous now, aren't you?
I guess we can do it during the update because we have some time.
Okay. The short answer is it's in this repository on the documentation. It was on the documentation?
Yeah, like if you want to use the IFC documentation, but you can also check the work.
Yeah. So more on that by Artur in a while, but this is how you do referencing bSDD and IFC and IDS. It's, by the way, to make this is a principal point of me. It's not just bSDD. So we're using these URIs. You can also reference to anything else. We don't want to create a lock-in to bSDD. So yeah, as you see here, this is how we expect bSDD things to end up in IFC in different versions as well. When you look at the box file, so I'm not sure if my internet connection is fast enough for this, but let's try. So I'm using BIMWorks now. This is a Dutch nerd company. It looks ugly, but it works really well. So I typically use this software tool to test things. This is created by Ruben, who is typically following the developments quite closely. So I asked him last week if he's up to date with the URI references and the new version of IDS. So I feel confident showing this, although I'm a bit on a slow internet connection. But this is one of the tools where you can see the URI in an IFC file. I know Akka also implemented that functionality I think also BIM Vision implemented that functionality. Anyone else we know of?
There are a few prototypes.
There we go. So this is the S1 building, and then when I click a random wall, random, and I look at classification references, for example, you see here, so this is a classification reference 2111, which is called massive wanden, but only 4 people in this room, and that's already a stretch, know what this Dutch term means, because we kind of get it indoctrinated from since we were 15. But for everyone else, there's this link here. We can find that in the IFC file. You click it and you see this is buitenwanden niet constructief. And when they would have published a translation, you could also see what it means in English. So that's how the interaction works with IFC and bSDD. So in this case, this randomly selected wall has a classification reference that also has this URI in it that refers to bSDD. So as you see, again, also I want to make a strong principle point out of this. This is a URI. It could also refer to any kind of ontology or object type library or whatever. Any questions here?
On the previous properties, there was a version number.
Yes.
This one is just now doesn't have one, but the previous one had it.
Yeah, this.
How do you know with
This
version number of the property I have in my model or in my function?
This also has a version number. Everything. We'll go into details after a break with Artur, but all of the URIs have version numbers. And if it doesn't have a version number, it has latest. So it always refers to the latest version, even when things update. Artur will go into those details. So typically, a requirement for this file in the Netherlands would be walls need to have an NLSRB classification. Even stronger, these non-load-bearing outer walls need to have a classification 2111. So that could be something that we put into an IDS. So let me see if I have the IDS file here. So this is the IDS file that you can also find on Box. So in this case, it says non-load-bearing outer walls need to have a classification reference 2111. See URI for more information. So in this case, it says all of the IFC walls that have a pset wall common with a property is external true and a pset wall common with a load-bearing false have requirements. So this is the split. This is where applicability ends and we start requirements. The requirements are that it needs to have a classification reference 2111. If you don't know what that means, here is the URI again, 2111. So you can look up what it means, what license it has, the translations, if they're published, etc., etc. Any questions? Cool. So then the next requirement, the next specification is I want to have quantities on windows. Windows need to have an area of base quantities and material. There needs to be at least one of those windows. So I say that the requirements go to all IFC windows, and the requirement is base quantities area. That's it, simple as that. The next requirement is it also needs to have a material, at least one, and as many as you want. So we have two specifications now. One says all of the outer walls that are non-load bearing need to have a classification code 2111. The second specification is all windows need to have base quantities area and a material. Okay, can you speak up? Yeah.
Inheritance process, or is it only applied to the wall type?
You mean wall type as in this is a wall and all of the instances of this wall inherit the properties?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question. This has been a very extensive discussion. So the rule in IFC is that you inherit the properties, and there's even this overruling exception that when there's the same property on an individual occurrence, it overrules the one of type. So IDS would have been way too complex. So at some point we agreed that these are the requirements for the instances. And if the classification code comes from the actual instance or from the type, it doesn't matter. It has to be there.
Okay, so the requirement will be applied to any window entities.
In this case, any window entity, yeah.
Okay, so is it possible to apply it to a specific object type, for example, of the window?
No. No.
Okay.
I have seen, because there is also a part of facet where you can say that a window needs to be part of an assembly, and you can have separate requirements on the window and the assembly. So I have seen some people that use that part of facet to do some trickery, but it's not recommended.
I think we should agree if we can do it or not. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course at this point we can have like slangs of IDS.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is indeed. So to give you an update of the status of IDS, it's a formal candidate standard now. We're now in the phase where software vendors have to prove that it's implementable. Yeah, since we already have a lot of software vendors that actually release products that support this, I think it's we can safely say that the current version is going to be the 1.0 version as well. But it's going to take another 12 weeks of voting where all of the chapters and members vote on this. But I would say the current version is going to be the 1.0. And indeed, we see more and more use cases coming up, and people finding ways to require things that used to be out of scope before. So I think there will be a 1.1 where we expand a little bit of the functionality, but also restrict some of these things that we see now that we just didn't think of in this phase. All right, and then just to follow up with the last part. So we have an IFC. We basically say for IFC furniture elements need to have a classification Apple. If you don't know what that means, here is the URI, because in many cases, the use case is that a user receives this XML file, this IDS. They're not going to read the XML. It opens up in some kind of a viewer that says furniture elements need to have this classification or this property. It needs to have a property medium. What does it mean? What as a user get this requirements? All of my pipes need to have a property medium. What the hell do I actually fill in there? Like 5 or yes? So that's why we have these URIs in the IDS as well. If you don't know what the property means, there's a reference where you can find everything about that. So in this case, nobody probably understands what the hell a classification code Apple is. So you just follow the URI and you get all of the explanation, and you found out that it's actually a demo domain of bSDD to make sure that we have all of the functionalities in bSDD covered and represented. So, so in this case, we say furniture elements needs to be classified as apples, and they need to have a size set volume. Again, volume. What does it mean? Do I fill in yes, it has a volume, or do I fill in 7? Again, also here you have the reference to what the definition is of volume within this domain. So that's how IFC, bSDD, and IDS work together. Questions? Yes.
You speak about that you can check just instances like doors, walls, doors and windows, but not door type or window type, or can you check only the type?
No, so what we found, so there's a whole process of how IDS came to life, and we had a lot of these practical examples of basically Excel sheets that required something. there was none of the practical examples in Excel sheet that made a differentiation between type and instance. So they basically said doors need to have these requirements.
Any entity type.
Yes. So, and then if in your IFC file, a door inherits these properties from a type, that's fine. So an end user is not interested in efficient storage of properties in a file. They're just interested, if I open it in my viewer, I want to see that property. If it's inherited from a type or if it's there, they don't care. They just need to have it.
Thank you.
We have end users, maybe.
Sorry?
We have some end users.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about this, but we have to start somewhere. And yeah, we made a point of starting at a level that is not too difficult to implement. So at least we get the whole industry and the implementations to that level, and then we move on. If we move on now, it's going to be this theoretical academic perfect IDS that nobody is implemented and is not working. So we cover 80% of the use cases, and we make sure that that 80% is implemented in a 100% reliable way. As soon as you start stretching to 90% of the use cases or 100%, the risk that implementations are not reliable anymore is massively increasing. It's like exponential almost. So the challenge was really to focus on the 85% of the use cases, make sure we have a consistent logic there, make sure that it's implemented in a consistent and logic and reliable way. So when we look back at the agenda, how do I get there? So this is the part where you shouted you wanted to have a fire rating for walls. And this is the part where we then also challenge some of the software vendors in the room that have an IDS editor. Take the IDS from the link we just had, so it already has some requirements. Add the requirement that walls need to have a property fire rating. Take the IFC property, because that was the one that first came up. And then after the break, well, probably a little bit later, so somewhere after lunch, it would be nice if you share those IDS files either on that box link if you want, or to Dan or me directly over email if you're a little bit more afraid to publicly share experiments. After the break, Claudio is going to explain how you can check if your IDS is actually a valid IDS. And then the next step would be create an IFC file. That's maybe other vendors in the room. And tomorrow we can then check an IFC file against the IDS. If we don't get any input from you, that's also fine. Then we just take the already existing S1 IFC file and the IDS file. But it would be nice, again, we want to do this also at the summit where people shout properties and objects they want to have. And we want to challenge the vendors. For most of you, I know it doesn't have to be that difficult. So would be nice to have a workshop. Someone's waving at me. Hello. Yeah. Yes, please. Feel free to, yeah, you know, this is not your first time in these kind of meetings. It goes sideways pretty quickly, so it's better not to ask and just do it. Yeah. Question in chat? Can I?
I said we will discuss it during the bSDD because it's very technical.
Okay, the question will be answered in the bSDD session. So what's the time? 10:14. What time did we have a break? 10:30. Perfect. So status update. Where are my slides of status updates? Oh yeah. So this is what I just said. So from now, please, if you are a vendor that can create an IDS file, feel free to do so. We need walls with fire rating. You can use the one that we have in the box folder. Wall starts from scratch. After the break, Claudio is going to explain how you can then check that IDS XML if it's valid. So I still have 15 minutes left until the break to do a status update. I didn't expect we were running so good on time. So we're going to be a little bit late, but this isn't going to take too long. So first of all, status of IFC 4.3. Many of you are curious about that. The last time I gave a status update was that we've sent it to ISO. The voting has been done. There were a lot of comments. Based on the voting, it was agreed to become an ISO standard, but based on the number of comments, ISO and buildingSMART collectively decided that it might be best to process the comments first and then put it up for an additional vote. So there were 3 options that I presented half a year ago. So just all approval, no comments, approval with comments or rejection. It ended up being this one. So approval with a significant amount of comments. So Evandro and his team did a massive job. I still don't understand how they did it. There's a couple of other people in the room as well, but they processed 750 comments. 570 comments, which diverts from there's a comma missing here to this doesn't make any sense, and everything in between. Massive efforts, and that resulted in 2 days ago. Yesterday, yes, jet lag. Yesterday, submitted that back to ISO. And that is now, ISO is now preparing for the formal vote. I think that takes another 12 weeks as well for ISO. If everything goes well, there will be a nice Christmas present that this is a formal ISO approved standard. Usually in these processes, not everything goes very well, but it probably doesn't take a whole lot of time after that as well. So yeah, with a bit of luck in next meeting, our next meeting, February 7th and 8th in Chicago, we would have an official IFC 403 standards. Questions? What is important to mention, or I think it's important to mention, is that the current version of IFC 403 that was sent to ISO yesterday is going to be the IFC 403 version. There's not going to be any changes anymore. So what is sent to ISO yesterday, it will only have an ISO stamp in a couple of months, but that's the version that we expect implementers to implement. That's the version that we're going to do software certification against. So from an implementer's perspective, there's no reason to wait for that official ISO stamp. Many of you already started doing the implementations. Many of you have already given some really good feedback that also improved the quality. But this is also the message that we're sending to the community. It takes a couple of months to get an ISO stamp. But the version that we have is the version that is going to be used in practice and going to get certified against.
Question. Is the version you sent yesterday new compared to what we were receiving, or?
Do you want to give a?
Yes, quickly. Yes, the version that we submitted yesterday contains some schema change as per request by ISO. There are 8 or 9 of them, I can remember. We have a session upcoming in Implementers Forum in September to brief the vendors about what's changed on the schema level. So and we always kept track of all the previous schema. So the path toward IFC 43 was a challenging one. So we have these IFC 43, RC1, RC2, RC3, then we have an addendum one. So what we submitted tomorrow is going to be the final with the new identifier, which is addendum 2, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be IFC 43, addendum 2 inside your files. But for the wider community, it's going to be IFC 43, period, the only one version available. And we kept track of all the changes, and we always inform vendors about all the changes. Again, very quickly, the 8 comments, the 8 changes that we made are not significant. Sometimes we forgot an optional attribute, wrong data type. So we do expect not big impacts on implementation. We already brainstormed this in Implementers Forum, and we're going to do more in the upcoming weeks.
There's also a question in the chat. Where can we find the schema that was sent yesterday?
We can't yet. As soon as it's submitted to ISO and approved to go for the FDs, it will be published.
But for vendors who want to implement.
Oh yes, it's live.
Yeah.
It's live. If you go now on the website and you search for the IFC 43 standard, the standard and the documentation that you see live today are the final one we submitted. And inside that you can extract the express schema if you want.
Can't share a link.
Yes, it's inside the documentation. Probably in the database, we have a database of standard database. We can provide a direct link maybe in the future if it's requested. But yes, at the moment it's inside. You can extract it.
Yeah. So just to give you an update, so this is I think most of you will find this is the latest link. So this is the latest version. There will be no schema changes anymore. There might be additional documentation. So further clarifications in text, maybe some further examples as well. But the schema is fixed now, sent to ISO. This needs to be updated, by the way, then.
Yeah, as soon as it's approved on the 7th, that's why it's.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Before the 7th, we can't do that. After the 7th, when we got the approval from ISO that these standard will undergo the FDs phase, we can finally tweak that.
Yeah, and that's 7th of September.
7th of September, yes. And then from there, it's going to be a fixed 8 weeks period of FDs phase.
Any other questions? So if you want to have
just a summary for all the implementers, perhaps just a summary for all the implementers, or a simple yes or no question. Comparing to IFC 4, are there any breaking changes in the 4.3?
Yeah, that depends on who you ask. So
I'm asking you.
Apparently, yeah. And if you ask me, yes.
And do you know the number, or are there many?
No, it's like Evandro said, some of them are just forgot about attributes, changing data types, and some of them are more significant because they were never implemented in IFC4 and are first tested now. So I think for end users, they're not going to notice this. Yeah. I think a lot of the implementers also didn't fully implement IFC4, only reference view. So also for them, impact would probably be minimal. But when you actually look at the schema, yeah, there's a lot of changes that needed to be changed because they didn't work in IFC4. I wanted to make a comment that if you want to have more details about the 8 changes, many of you are already part of the implementers forum that meets weekly on Thursdays. So that would be the place to be. I think most of the vendors that are actively implementing this are already up to date. So that's why we didn't spend a separate session on this. But yeah, if you want to have more details, Evandro is the guy. Okay. Yeah.
Just one information that we received the invitation for the joint work group 12 for analyzing this document, and the meeting is next week. Yep. So that means the process is going very fast. But just to insist about that.
Yeah. If the fastest process is followed, there should be a ISO stamp by Christmas. So yeah. Maybe also interesting to mention is that ISO is now not voting on the actual IFC anymore. They're only voting on how the comments are processed. So yeah, there's a very high probability that this is just going to be approved and published. As you see, there's also this 4.4, start of 4.4. Actually, that's not really the point where we start 4.4. It's a little bit earlier as well, but 4.4 is based on 4.3. So yeah, these 8 schema changes obviously had to be processed first before we can start 4.4. I think we're at a point now where we can start 4.4. There's mainly the tunnel contribution in 4.4. There are some generic topics that are going to be added to, like 3D grids. Michel can tell you all about that if you're interested in the details. Currently, there's no timeline available yet. Yeah, we now have 4.3 clarified, so we can start defining scope. That's done by the SCTE. Tunnel will definitely be in there, but there's also some activity in the electrical room that might be in there, and there's some activity in feedback from vendors as well that we might want to process in 4.4. So from what we know now, that is going to be the scope. And depending on the exact scope, we can start defining a timeline. Do you want to add anything to that, Michel? Then in that case, if any one of you has questions about tunnel or 4.4, Michel is the guy. Any other questions? All right, then the mythical IFC5. I honestly also don't know what the current status is. I'm happy to learn from Greg tomorrow. So latest status update, Greg did give me some showed me some very long documentation and text. So there's definitely progress. And it's definitely exciting as well. So I'm looking forward to the workshop tomorrow. We'll get a full update then. Then IFC software certification. How am I on time? 4 minutes. IFC software certification. Last time we presented these 3 new tracks. There's a new system for IFC file validation, which is very personal. Users upload a file and they get input and feedback if that file is valid or not against the schema. Then we want to use that data from that validation service to provide metrics on how consistent certain software is doing it right or wrong. So if we have a software tool that is consistently placing the URIs at the wrong place or consistently mixing up things, then we would see that in the database of this validation service. So this is actual users with actual files from actual software tools uploading those files to the validation service, and we're going to use the metrics of the validation results to publish that and to do certification on that. So that is going to be a big topic after lunch, but again, also a very highly technical topic. There's also a third track where we want software vendors to have the ability to get certified for a specific use case. So the first 2 I just talked about is just validating against the schema, validating against the specification. But if there's a specific use case that says, this is really how I need the spatial decomposition, I really need to have these objects in here for this use case, then you can define a use case that says, this needs to be in there, it needs to be structured this way. These are the further additional, this is going to be the theme of the day, right? The further additional requirements and scope and process maps, and these are the minimum amount of users that are involved in these places of the process. So we're decent, I think we used to call this an IDM. These days we call it a use case, a decent use case. Then software tools can also get certified against that use case. So that is also the current software certification, like reference view and coordination view, is also very closely related to these use cases, because they basically say if you want to do coordination between architect, construction engineer, and MEP engineer, these are the minimum objects that you need to prove that you can export. This is the spatial structure you have to adhere to, et cetera, et cetera. So we expect those use cases to grow and to be published in the use case management service. And there might also even be regional specific use cases. There's some countries in Asia that want to do software certification for certain software tools in their region. So this is basically additional requirements on top of the generic IFC specification. I'm afraid to ask, are there any questions? Because I know there probably are. Are there any questions? Good, move on. So then the status of IDS, as I said, currently it's formally candidate standard in the validation phase. The problem we currently have is that we have to find a software vendor that wants to implement this, but was not engaged in a previous phase. So policy of bSDD is that you have a standard validated by a software vendor without current knowledge. That is to test if the documentation and the schema is all clear enough for an outsider to implement this without having the prior knowledge of the discussions and the meetings. Since this is such a popular standard, everyone seems to be having to be involved in the previous phase. So we have a bit of a challenge of a vendor that wants to implement IDS without having been involved in a previous meeting. So if you are one of those vendors, Mr. Mahikat, then please, we really need you to to switch from 0.9. whatever we have now to 1.0 to prove this. If we have that, so if we find the vendor and the vendor says yes with all of the documentation without any kind of help, I can implement this, I understand it, the documentation is extensive enough, the examples are good, I get it, I implemented it, then we can start the 12-week voting procedure, and then we can publish it as a final standard, which has a 1.0. But yeah, like I said, as expected, it might take a while, but the current status, the current schema isn't going to change a lot. Questions? You all on the break? Yes.
There are some odd things if we are accepting this current schema IDS, then there are some odd things like you can have wildcards in attribute names and so on. So will there be some like best practice documentation or something? I think we should have.
Yeah. Yeah, Claudio is currently making a plan of what is in scope that we still need to clarify, because the schema is probably not going to change, but we do have a list of where the documentation needs to be extended. Yeah. So that's also going to be part of this phase. We're going to extend the documentation, maybe have some more examples as well, publicly available examples. So that's also part of this phase, yeah. You should talk to Claudio about this, definitely. Any other questions? Then status of BCF, nothing changed. This is the dream for me. These people are just moving forward. There's a new version, but that was already there last time. Documents API is now under voting as a formal candidate standard, but already used in practice as well. So yeah, this is just moving on step by step, really nice. I don't have to, every time I call into a meeting, I just disrupt the process. So I'm trying to stay out of it as well. bSDD is a massive update on bSDD. I think this is the first update guided by Artur, which is indeed massive. It's almost as big as the last time when we created a completely new bSDD. Principles are still the same. There are some new API calls that you need to be aware of, but we have a separate session on that after the break. And yeah, maybe nice to mention that also we're thinking about this verification of data that is published. That's also still very much in its infancy. So hopefully we can. Oh yeah, we agreed that Yusheng would present that in Chicago next time, right? I'm going to push that over the edge now.
We agreed about what to think about it. We agreed about that, to develop it, so it goes through, and we hope to share it meanwhile and to present it officially.
Yep. Yeah. So since bSDD is not a standard, but it's a service, there will be some more communication about this at the summit as well. So if you're interested in that, there's probably a lot of opportunities to be informed. I think this is the first time Artur is actually also at these meetings. So if you haven't spoken to him yet, then please do grab your chance. Almost there. Last one is UCM, Use Case Management Service. It's up and running. It's currently under discussion on what the future should be. We've hired an independent consultant to do interviews with various stakeholders, and currently there's a roadmap being created which direction this should go. So is it going towards publication of official use cases where people can get certified against? Is it a free-for-all? Is it going to be a more editing tool where people can even create their IDS? So yeah, there seems to be some kind of a consensus on the direction, but I don't want to spoil that until we have an official report from an independent consultant. So the current focus is on integrating it with bSDD and IDS. So when there is an IDS file published in UCM, you can not just download it, but also kind of view it in a viewer that understands it. If you have any questions here, sorry, can't answer them at the moment. Then there's this software implementation database. Last time I announced that this is going to be a self-service portal. So I'm not sure if you remember, but every time you had a new functionality in your IFC, you were emailing Jeffrey Olette and say, can you update the table? Because I now also support this standard BCF or this version of IFC. That was almost a day task. So we transformed that into a self-service portal. The link here is surprisingly a link that users often use if they need to buy a software tool that supports certain functionalities. They go here and they search, give me a list of all of the software tools that support BCF, this version, or that support IFC, that version. And it became too hard for us to maintain. So we created this into a self-service portal. So you can create an account, you can search for your software tool. There's a button, claim this software. So then you, when you are approved by me or Evandro, you can then edit that software tool. At least that is the idea, because when you previously had an account on this website, apparently you don't have enough access rights. So therefore, let's use these 2 days as well. For those of you who have issues, I'm happy to hands-on help during the break to see, to give you enough rights after you claim the software to also edit it. So if this, if we figured out where the, because this is a security issue, there's just 2 high security issues that make sure that you don't by default get access to editing stuff that you're not allowed to. So yeah, if you tested this, I know Akka tried it, I know Oracle tried it. Let's sit together in somewhere to so I can look at your screen, what's happening, and I can look in the database if you have enough access rights. Oh, the hard code as well, right? Or did you manage to edit? Yeah, there's people who did manage to edit, and there's people who don't. I just want to make sure that you are aware that it's not personal. So yeah, let's figure that out. I think it has something to do with people who had a previous account on the site and people that are new. People that are new, it works. People that had a previous account, it doesn't seem to be working. Any questions on that? All right. Then just to wrap up, that there's a lot going on. So as you know, there's separate topics like IDS Audit tool and bSDD that are scheduled in this meeting, but there's also a couple of other topics like UCM, for example, that are undergoing massive changes, but are not scheduled in this meeting. So please, if you're interested, reach out. Don't hesitate. I get a lot of calls and emails trying to answer them as quickly as possible, but don't hesitate. That's it. So I see Frederick has, oh no, he's just hiding. How's the IDS going? So okay. Well, you still have we still have a 20-minute break for coffee. So after that, hopefully it will work out. Any other questions before we go for a break? Good. You will need a break. I can see it. So I suggested 20-minute break, a little bit over. So we start at around 11 again because we have a big agenda. Do you have an announcement?
Yes, not a question. Everyone come and see me in the break so I can give you a token for lunch. We'll get that done in the break so we can go quickly to lunch afterwards.
There's a question. What's the question? Is there a status update on OpenCDE standard?
Yeah, OpenCDE is like marketing container term for all of the API standards. BCF and Foundation API and Documents API are kind of under that umbrella. The status update of Documents API is that it's under candidate voting, same for Foundation API. So yeah, like I said, this is progressing nicely. It's under voting now, but all of the specifications are already available. Do you want to add something to that, Pasi?
No, just waiting for.
Yeah, waiting for the process to run, I think is a good summary of what OpenCDE currently is. All right, let's have a break then. Did you have any other announcements, Dan? Nothing about the group photo yet? Oh, we'll do that later. All right, let's have a break.
How long is the break?
Up until 11. We have a strict agenda, so I want to start at 11 again.
No, just one thing.
Welcome back, everyone. Until lunch, we have the IDS, how you call it? Ensuring IDS consistency, which is a very nice name. And we also have the Implementers Forum and bSDD updates. So this is again going to be one of those sessions where we just fire a lot of information to you. It's all going to be recorded, so don't worry, you can all watch this back. We're starting with Claudio. You'll introduce yourself, right? So Claudio has been part of the IDS movement for a while, and also created a tool where you can check the IDS consistency, if it is a valid file or not. And that doesn't only have to do with schema, it has to do with a lot of other things as well. He has 4 slides and 40 minutes, so this is going to be very interesting. Are there any questions up front for him that he can highlight? Because I know some of you have already looked at the tool. Any questions up front that he can highlight during the presentation? No? All right, cool. It's yours.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Claudio Benghi. I'm affiliated with Northumbria University, and I've been working a long while with interoperability. I'm part of the original XBeam team. So we've been developing the XBeam toolkit for like 15 years now to exchange IFC files. And on top of that, we have all sorts of APIs to play with all the other formats, IFC, BCF, you name it, we have it. I've always been interested in the business side. So of course, IFC is important because it gives you a way to exchange information. But then, what information do we exchange? As a project manager myself, because my background is in construction, I am an architect. So yeah, the technology is beautiful, but what information are we exchanging? What's the business end? Okay, and so today we try to talk about that. IDS is a tool that allows us to say, okay, in this model, we need such information, and we need to make sure that such information is available in the format that we expect. I take that we are all familiar with it. Just quick show of hand. You're all familiar with it? Yeah, who's not familiar with it? I always get the question wrong, the other way around. Okay, so I'll probably have to cover it quickly, but I will start with the authoritative repositories. So what I'll be presenting today is all information that is available on 2 official bildingSMART repositories that capture the development and the documentation around IDS. So the 2 repositories are here. IDS, Information Delivery Specification Standard, is the format that we share to tell everybody, I need this bit of information in such model. We've been working at this for a few years already, and we are comfortable that we've reached a good stage, and we're prepared to deliver 1.0 shortly with a few tweaks. So what's the workflow here? The workflow is that you have the confidence as an IDS, as part of the construction industry, that IDS allows you to explicitly state in a computer readable format clearly what information you need. Not only what information do we need, but also if we actually have that information in a model. So the big picture is that you exchange an IDS file and you exchange an IFC file. And the IDS file tells you if the IFC files are fully complete. So if they contain all the information that by that stage you expect to have. So you get a nice green or red light that tells you, yeah, the deliverable is fulfilled. And you can go on in a very well-managed project management workflow. Now, this is excellent. What are the problems that we have with that? Is that you need a tool that gets the IDS, gets the IFC, and give you that green light or red light. And that's where our main problems come about. What if you have two different tools from two different vendors that implement IDS and implement IFC? One gives you a green flag, the other one gives you a red flag. Who is right? Right? So we need to make sure that no implementer provides the wrong response. So that all the tools that comply with the IDS standard give you a green flag if the model is valid and give you a red flag if the model is not. That might seem trivial. It turns out it's not so trivial. So, of course, if one of us fails, then we're all in trouble because the industry does not get the nice benefit of making sure that we appoint, that we have clear workflows and clear responsibility for failing to adhere to the workflow. So today we're trying to present the solutions that we have for making sure that that does not happen. Of course, we have some technological solution. XSD is the first of such solutions, right? We have a nice XSD schema so that if you create an IDS file and you receive an IFC file, an IDS file, you know whether that's well formed. So am I missing some property? Am I adding extra attributes that should not be there in my XML? I should say, of course, I mean, granted, IDS is an XML file, okay? So XSD allows you to check whether that's well formed. But unfortunately, the logic that you fit into an XSD is not rich enough to guarantee that a well-formed IDS is also useful, meaningful. It makes sense from a business end, okay? I could have a perfectly valid IDS file that allows me to require that all walls are also windows. Yeah, that's a perfectly valid XSD specification. But it is meaningless. And if I pass that model into my workflow, and of course, the model fails that requirement, I don't want anybody to be picking up the phone and calling the architect to say, your model is failing. Doesn't make sense, right? You need to be able to say, to call the BIM manager and tell them your IDS is nonsense. But just to give you an idea of the policy that we are pursuing, if we reach such a stage that apologies, that an IDS like that is in my common data environment, we need to trigger this in some way. So the model we have decided is actually going to be failing, all right? But we also need to give the architect a weapon, like something that tells it, yeah, I know that model is failing because the specification is nonsensical. So in order to make sure that all the implementers have a common understanding of IDS, and we are trying to document beyond the XSD, like a rich suite of regression IDS IFC pairs, so that each of the specifications can be tested against the expected outcome. And we need to provide correct positives and negatives, so passes and fails, so that we all, as IDS verification implementers, we provide the same results. And on top of that, the IDS auditing tool is that weapon that we give to the architects to say, well, we give to the community. It is available for architects to make sure that the blame doesn't fall on them, or designers, let's say, that the blame does not fall on them unwarrantedly, but also for implementers to check whether the IDSs that they export are meaningful and correct. Have you got questions this far? I should be asking, what are your questions this far? I'm sure you do have any. Sure.
Yeah, how do you plan on testing all nonsensical rules? Like, because I guess there could be an endless number of nonsensical rules.
There are, yeah, true. There are an endless number of potentially nonsensical rules. This far, we have implemented a few. The reason that we have implemented a few is that we are following the same principle that Léon discussed before. We are trying to deliver a standard that is reasonably easy to implement in a short time frame across a variety of platforms. So we don't want to put an excessive burden on the implementers today. So we have started discussing, you know, a number of meaningful cases that cover perhaps 80–85% of the situations, and then we'll start from there from 1.0 at release 1.0, and then hopefully quickly after that we'll have a community that has gone through the hoops, you know, and is able to quickly update to 1.1 with the extra 10%. Maybe that brings us very close to servicing the community in a meaningful way. So the list of the available checks is currently published in one of the two repositories that I was presenting before. Let me quickly go back to that slide, which is here. So we have these two repositories. The IDS repository is the one where we publish the XSD schema itself and all the regression suite that allows you to check your implementation with those IFC IDS pairs that give you an expected fail or pass on each of the tests. I'm happy to go into the detail and show you them if I have further questions. Just 1 second. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I think this is good. How do you know that an IDS, is there any way to know that an IDS has been audited? Or does everyone who uses the IDS need to audit it to make sure it's valid?
Okay, I think that we have multiple stages. So the tool that we are presenting today to audit can be adopted in many points across the workflow. So you as an IFC, an IDS implementer can audit the IDS file upon opening it, and this, you know, put a warning up for the end user that says this IDS that you received does not comply with the auditing tool. I'll be presenting like a standard implementation that you can directly reference. So we have a C# implementation for the auditing tool that is published on with an MIT license that you can just embed in your solution and run. So we have an initial API, and we are open to suggestions to make it more easier to implement in whatever scenario you're finding. So my point is that perhaps people that are exporting IDS will want to audit the files as they export them, and also people that are importing IDS will want to audit them upon import, so that we have, you know, everybody has the same algorithms as access, if nothing else, the same algorithm to appoint blame appropriately.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions at this stage? Yep. Oh, too many. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So just awesome to be auditing IDS. Is there a plan to have this in a similar fashion as the validation service online somewhere, where users can then use also in the same manner as one can check an IFC to check an IDS? Because I assume like an architect is unable to, you know, run this?
This is a political thing.
It is. Yeah, so I also wanted to comment on Angel's question there. So I don't want to be the buildingSMART that says this is the standard and this is the tool that we use to blame you when you did it wrong. So this initiative is to help vendors easily implement IDS and make sure that what they export is as valid as possible. I want to stay away from the blame game as long as possible. I know we have it in IFC and I can't make it disappear, but for IDS, let's just implement this first and let's try to implement it as consistent and as good as possible. And this tool, there's a reason why we publish this as MIT, so it doesn't infect your source code. You can just use it in any kind of commercial environment to help you export valid IDSs. That's the political policy. Help the vendors to improve this consistently and valid. And this blame game, maybe in a while there will be reasons why we have to do digitally signed IDSs that are validated, but I would really like to stay away from that as long as possible.
Point of clarification, when I said blame, I maybe used the wrong word, but I wanted to say that you need to be able to identify perhaps, and I don't want to put the blame on implementers. I want to correctly appoint responsibilities mostly down the line on this in the CDE environment, so that you don't blame the designer where the fault is in the people that specify the IDS in the first place. So, you know, that we appoint responsibilities so that authorities and responsibilities are clear in the common data environment rather than blaming for poor implementation. But again, what we're trying to do is make sure that IDS has an easy implementation path for all of us. And of course, this requires a lot of coordination and meeting and conversations and test cases and test suite and regression suites. But once we have that, then it becomes straightforward, and we have like an authoritative source for making sure that we all agree on what's right and what's wrong. There are more hands raised? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, actually, my question is about maybe the next step to this. Will there be like a public algorithm to check IFCs against IDS?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Not from buildingSMART.
Okay. Is that a political thing too? Okay.
But we have a public regression suite, so that we have an IFC IDS pair, and you know if that pair results in a pass or a fail. So we are documenting the outcome. We're not publishing a successful algorithm for validation. Now, I've spoken with a number of vendors, and there might or might not be publicly available verification services out there. I think there probably end up being a few, but it's not our responsibility, or we don't think it's right for us to be covering that, because we need the community to be having business cases and having sources of income and all sorts. Yeah. Okay, I guess the situation is clear. If you don't have any other questions at this stage, let me go a little step forward and present the tool. So I'll start with a quick test case, because the reality of it is that we have this beautiful IDS schema that allows us to say, oh, we need this information at this stage. But in common data environment and in workflows out there, people will likely get all sorts of Excel-like data sources that they need to convert to IDS to make sure that they go into the workflow correctly. So this is just one of them. We'll probably be presenting more through the next sessions. So we have, at XBeam Limited, we have one such method that starts from an Airtable that helps people capture requirements. there is a standard there that allows you to fill in those cells with a number of conventions. So if you go entity type, property name, then you have an applicability and a requirement. Okay, I don't know how deep I need to go into the meat of the IDS standard, but basically you're saying, oh, applicability is for this subset of the building, applicability, you have a number of expected data constraints, requirements, okay? So in the convention of this Airtable format, if you type entity type property name, then the entity is the applicability and the property is the requirement. So what we do is then we export this, and we have a number of other fields such as purpose and the milestone and such. So we export a number of different IDSs from here, each from one for each milestone. So stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So we get a number of XML or IDS files. Each of them contains an applicability and a check. I'm not sure that you can quite read this, but basically there is a conversion between this row and the XML content. Yes, your question? There's a question in chat. If I can hear it, I'll just repeat it so you don't have to run around with the microphone then.
I have a question about test cases. All of the provided tests in the repository assume that the all quanta is being used, meaning basically that all found entities must comply. What about checking only for existence? Is it possible to set an IDS requirement to check only for existence of one occurrence? In my understanding, the min occurs and max occurs is not enough to distinguish between all and exist.
Yeah. So at the moment, we have an implementer's agreement that min occur and max occurs is only constrained to 3 possible configurations. That kind of map to the concept of required, prohibited, and optional. So the auditing tool actually checks that. That's the current state of IDS at 1.0. We are thinking of ways to extend that with more flexible solutions for 1.1. I hope that answers the question. But the point, I think the broader point is that in the next weeks, we'll go through the regression suite quite thoroughly and improve. The way to bring this up for being properly managed is to open an issue with such a concern on the IDS repository, and before 1.0 we'll go through the list of all the issues and make sure that all the issues are closed before releasing the documentation as 1.0. Okay. So I'll continue with the workflow. So we produce that IDS, and before telling people, okay, these are good IDS, we audit it. So we run the auditing tool. This is a command line executable. IDS tool.exe. Audit is the action, and you pass the file to audit, and you get this response that is telling you that you have a fail error on the 103, invalid value flow rate, and accepted values exist, starting with and the list of the first of them. So we are trying to provide feedback that is detailed enough for implementers to know exactly where the audit fails and what are the reasons for it. So we have kind of standardized in the IDS repository a list of error codes that have a description, and we give you so that they are like worded in such a way that you have all the information to try and fix the export problem. So at export stage, you can use this to check that your code is providing valuable results. So this is my, sorry, I should probably be more explicit, but this is my development environment in which I also document the IDS tool that is published online at this other repository. So github.com, buildingSMART IDS Audit tool. Okay, the one that I said is an MIT resource for you. I think this then takes us to the step where, the stage where I'm actually presenting the implementation. But maybe you have questions at this stage. Any other questions on what I covered this far? Okay, so let's go to the tool. So the tool itself is a C#, .NET 6, .NET Core application. It is made in 4 projects. The IDS lib project actually contains all the business logic. So the code that reads an IFC file, reads an IDS file, checks it against the schema, and checks it against all these kind of possible scenarios in which you have some logical inconsistency. The logical inconsistency might be of various types. I'll try to zoom in a bit for a while, but so it could be that the min occur, max occur does not make sense. You have a minimum occur which is greater than the maximum occur. That doesn't make any sense. You get a warning from that. You get an error from that. So applicability, invalid attributes, invalid schema identification, incompatible clauses. So you get an error if you require that an entity has an attribute that the schema does not have. So if you're asking me to give you the width of a proxy as an attribute, you get an error because we have embedded in the IDS tool a little bit of metadata that helps you know the structure of the IFC schema enough to avoid such mistakes. Or incompatible clauses also include things like type inconsistency. So all of the walls must be windows. That is meaningless and is rejected. Or this property set should include a value like a property name glue, but that's a standard property set name, and in the standard it does not have the glue property. So we also have that data set. Now, the library itself hard codes all of those as strings, so you can use that code freely without any legacy on other standards. You just get the enumeration of valid values. The IDS lib code gen is an executable that does that. So the code gen is an executable that produces all of the schema info properties GCS. So these code here, these strings with properties and such, they are all coming from a generated, so they are automatically generated. So we try and we do this to keep it as consistent as possible by looking at the metadata of the various standards, of the various versions of IFC. And so we have all the properties for IFC 2x3. We have all the properties for IFC 4. We have all the properties for 4x3 and so on. Okay, and so again, another one of the possible failure modes is that you're asking me for a particular entity type that is defined in 4x3, but was not defined in 2x3, but you're telling me that the schema should be 2x3 with a class that didn't exist back then. And so you get an audit failure there. Okay, so the IDS lib code gen does that, creates that list, that metadata. The IDS tool is actually an executable that invokes the DLL just to have a tool to directly execute auditing on the on IDS files. And it is a command line application, so you have, you invoke it with a number of parameters and you get the results. It's the one that I showed before on the slide. And the tests is actually, we're trying to do a test-driven development approach here. So we have a suite of tests, and we launched the tests, run all tests, and we are trying as hard as possible to keep, to be reliable. And so we have at this stage 600 and like 900 plus tests, 947 tests, of which one fails, because we are. So this is one that fails because we are trying the library and seeing whether it's getting information from a non-seekable stream online, and so this is getting information from the IDS repository, and the IDS repository is still in flux. So we know that this is a failure due to a mistaken file that is currently on the IDS repository. The feedback that we have is that we have invalid IFC text to match measure names, because measure names should be uppercase. And so we're going to fix that in the repository. We already have a pull request. Leon, if you want to accept that, this test will pass next. I don't blame Leon. This was published yesterday night at 2 a.m. So, but that's lazy, Leon, to be honest. All right. So we're trying our best to be, reliable, clearly documented, following due process. And again, when I say that the authoritative repositories here are the GitHub repositories, is that in the past, we have had conversations on the Slack channel, conversations in the weekly or bi-weekly meetings, and it was not necessarily always reflected in real time in the repository. And so this led to a few code fluctuations that we're trying to minimize in the future. So from now on, I think the IDS authoritative sources need to be sitting clearly here under the buildingSMART GitHub pages. Okay, so we had a couple of people already try to embed this tool in their solution. I know Akka did in the past. We had a few conversations, and before the summer we had a first call, and then we had a complicated but beautiful summer, and so I took August completely off. And when I go back and check in the audit tool, I now have 11 issues that I need to sort out. I'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks, and I'm happy for other people to kind of join in and try to use this tool in their solution. Either, if you are an IDS producer, or if you are an IDS verifier, or at whatever stage of the workflow you sit, feel free to get in touch with me, open an issue. I'm happy to have a one-to-one session with you online or remotely or in person, or however you feel, to make sure that you have an easy path to adopting this tool in your workflow and providing good feedback. So for instance, Aka said, okay, but we're not, so the feedback that we initially were producing was, there is such and such issue at line 52, position 33, and that is useful if your XML is nicely indented, but if you're streaming a machine readable XML, you basically only have one line. And so we figured out the process to identify the specific location of the issue in a different way. It's implemented. I still have to give feedback to them for them to use that in a way that they can internally know where the problem is before they present useful feedback to the end user, because sometimes it's the person that specifies the requirement that needs to be told, hey man, you told me that this window also needs to be a wall. That doesn't make sense. Please fix it. And so they need to have internal understanding with a meaningful error code to drive the user experience to help the end user to avoid meaningless IDS requirements. And so, yeah, that's the forum where this is going to happen. So I think this is more or less what I had in mind. We have 4 minutes for Q&A. Yes.
So you have a regression checking suite that checks IDS and IFC together, right? So if the IFC...
Okay, so the regression suite, okay, I can show you something interesting, maybe. So the regression suite is here. It's in the IDS standard, we have a development folder that contains an XSD and a bunch of initial examples of valid IDS. Now, in my IDS library, I have a number of tests. And what I am, but remember, in this case, I'm only testing the validity of the IDS. I'm not testing the outcome of the IFC. And so all of those tests I know pass, so these are good models. But then the other thing that we have in the online repository, too many things open, is the documentation. So under the documentation folder, we have markdown files that give you initial guidance on how to interpret the content of the schema. But then we have a folder with test cases, and then we have pairs, as I said, of IDS and IFC files, and they each contain one element, and depending on the naming convention, if the name starts with fail, so that element must fail the requirement specified. And if the name starts with pass, so the pair IDS IFC, the element specified needs to pass.
And these are manually constructed?
No, these are actually code generated. And that's my next step. I need to understand how that happens. That was done by Dion. Dion sent me a reference to a brilliant Python script that produces this. And for some reason, there are 20 lines of code that do all the magic. And I'm like, this, I don't know how that can happen. But That's my next challenge. And the reason it's very important is that right now, I need to find the skill in me to fix that, because I'm actually using the auditing tool at the moment in a GitHub action, so that GitHub, every time we commit a change to to the repository, runs an action that you've merged it. Okay, I'll try and demo that, but I should be working here as well. So there is a review, the action actually, so I should actually, sorry, 1 second. If I go pull requests and then all of them, it was, it doesn't show it anymore because you've merged it. But the action tells you whether the repository passes or failed the test. So it's telling you, okay, you have this many inconsistencies between the auditing tool and the IDS files, both in the test cases and in the documentation folder. And right now, is that it? Here? Oh, okay. So the details are that we are passing audit in the development folder. So each of the 10, 15 IDS files there are valid, but there are a number of failures in the test cases. Mind you, that is not testing the IFC compliance, it's only testing the correctness of the IDS itself. And if we go to the test cases, I can kind of show all the so I can tell exactly which of the files are actually not passing the test at the moment, and I've marked them as warnings because at the moment I still have no control over that folder, because I still need to learn how to fix that from the magic Python script. Once that's done, and once the entire community agrees that that is a correct pass or fail, then we'll have to be all happy with that. So I'll show you that if you download this IDS audit tool solution, you can actually, you have two ways of testing for yourself your files. So this, okay, this is the IDS folder. Now I want the script on here. So this is the compiled version. So I now want to audit the IDS files that Léon shared earlier with in the files for attendees. And if I launch that, I get a number of fails. Again, we get a number of fails because these are manually generated files, and for instance, you get information that cardinality on classification at line 42, position 6 is invalid because it fails implementation agreement. So cardinality is about min occurs and max occurs. 1 and 1, so minimum and maximum of 1 is technically possible to write, but is meaningless because it's outside of the 3 cases that we have described in the agreements, which is required, optional, or mandatory. Sorry, required, optional, or prohibited. Okay, 1.1 would say I need exactly 1 entry of this type, and we said not for 1.0. So I can go and perhaps fix that. if my computer helps me doing that. Is this it? Sorry, let's write again. Line 42. Of course, line will be 42. Okay, why is it? I don't actually have a min occur and max occurs. Well, that's because the default for IDS are 1, and so because we didn't specify them. So how do I fix this? Max occurs. Unbounded. I hope that's the right thing to say. Run the verification again. The error is gone. You can go through the list of errors, fix your export, fix your import auditing tool, be comfortable that your IDS complies and is meaningful. If you have a Ubuntu or a Linux or a MacBook or anything else, and you have you also want to test this, you can build your IDS. So this is in the IDS repositories. This is executing the action, the default GitHub action that we have. So it's going through the test of all the regression suite that we have, and it's giving you all the exact errors in each of the files. When you run it on Windows, it's like ew, and when you run it on Linux, the compilation time for .NET is a little bit longer, but once it's compiled, it's quite fast to execute. So it's going to take a few seconds, but then it's producing the list of the 400 fails of the current IDS repository, and so that's the challenge that we have in the next 12 weeks before we hopefully reach the publication of the IDS version 1, where I hope to have a more complete regression suite and a good documentation for everybody to do both IDS production and IFC verification. Okay, I'm not terribly over time, so thank you very much for your attention. Oh, you have a question? Sure.
So you showed the results of the checking of an IDS file. Can you show the results of the checking of an IFC file thanks to a proper IDS file?
Yeah, we can. Perhaps tomorrow, I guess. We have a session tomorrow where we can do that. Because
and with we, you mean XBIM then?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So as we said, we do have so we will not be as building. I say we, but I'm not strictly bbuildingSMART. So we will not be, bbuildingSMART is not going to be providing a canonical implementation of the IFC verification workflow, but a number of vendors will have it. And if there are other implementers that do have that, they're welcome to show it tomorrow. If there is a value for that, we can do that tomorrow.
Yeah. So thank you, Claudio.
Thank you very much. Oh, it's happening. It's true.
It's happening. So who wants to go next, Evandro or Artur?
I think unless there are questions for the IFC for the 3 updates, I think Artur can go first. It's probably more important.
Yeah, so you can take the time you need instead of having to rush.
How do I unplug it? I just brutally take it out.
All right. So next is indeed then Artur. So he has enough time for the bSDD updates, and Evandro only gets what's left in the end for the implementers forum, which are meeting weekly. So most of you are already up to date with that. So while there is a switch, just indeed adding some comments to the story of Claudio, bbuildingSMART is this group of people coming together to solve problems that they can't solve on their own. And it's not the role
Not me.
of It's not the role of buildingSMART to produce software. It's the role of the members of buildingSMART to produce software. And these kind of things to make sure that all of these implementations are consistent and reliable, that's the role of buildingSMART. Creating a tool that checks IFC against IDS, that's not the role of buildingSMART, it's the role of the vendors and the members. So we're explicitly not going to do it as buildingSMART, but as Claudio already mentioned, XBIM has a toolkit for that. I think IFC OpenShell has some implementation on that as well. So we are happy to see the competition amongst all of you on who does best. It is up to us to make sure that they are all implementing it in the same way, in a reliable way. And this tool from Claudio is indeed the reason why it is almost platform independent. It runs on Mac, Linux, Windows. It has an MIT license, so you can just use it internally without having to have too much issues on licensing. That is all the reasons to help you, to stimulate you to do these implementations. Ready?
Yeah.
So next one, Artur. I guess you're introducing yourself as well, right?
Yes, I can. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's my first General Assembly, but I know many of you already. I'm Artur Tomczak. I'm the bSDD product manager. I started this year, and I'm still also working on my PhD in Norway in the meantime, let's say. And I know we have quite mixed audience today, so I want you to raise hands. Who doesn't know what the data dictionary is? Okay. And who doesn't know what bSDD is? Okay. That's good. Then I can skip some of the introduction. I will still say a few words. Yeah, and apologies to the audience online that I will not ask them, but I assume it's similar. So I will just say a few words about bSDD in general, and then I have a long list of, maybe not so long, but I have a few updates that we did recently in bSDD, and I want you to be informed, and I also want to hear your feedback and some input, because not all of them are already solved. So we have also some open questions later. And if you have any issues you want to raise regarding bSDD, yeah, let's do that at the end. We'll have time. I hope we'll have time for this. Okay, so I think I can skip this slide. This is what we are showing at the conference in Norway, that this object, probably all of you know how you call it in your language, but if we speak the common language IFC, that would be IFC furniture chair. But if you ask people from different countries, from different contexts, this object has a lot of different names. And if we go into attributes like material or color, it's a Pandora box, because there are many ways we can define materials. You could call it a plastic or polypropylene, or you could call it white, you could call it beige, or I don't know, seashell was the official name I found from the manufacturer. So in bSDD, in data dictionaries, you can define the definitions, names for different objects. You can define translations, attributes, and provide the meaning of those definitions. And there are dictionaries, data dictionaries used in different industries, like NASA has planetary data dictionary. There are many data dictionaries used in the medical laboratories. And bSDD is a service from buildingSMART to distribute those data dictionaries. They can be coming from different sources. We have different software tools that allow to create data dictionaries. And bSDD is a platform, is a service to distribute those dictionaries. I can skip some of it since you are aware what bSDD is, but just to highlight that this is a neutral solution that we want to provide for others to have one place where all of the dictionaries can be related to each other, connected, and also one place to integrate with the software. But as Léon already told us today, a couple of highlights about bSDD. We are not forcing anyone to use bSDD. We are also supporting other data dictionary solutions. And if you want to use the identifiers from bSDD, you are free to do it. But also we support any other solutions like this. So you can also use identifiers coming from WaterNet or other platforms. And I will say a few words about ISO later. And again, to highlight, bSDD is not a standard itself. It's applying some standards, but it's not a standard itself. It's a service that we provide. It's made for storing the definitions, not any actual values, data values like product or product related. And it is not really made for maintaining those standards because there are already dedicated platforms for it. We are just distributing it or allowing people to distribute themselves. Yeah, typical use case, I think we can skip through that, but if you have questions later, yeah, let me know. And okay, the benefits, first of all, bSDD is there to improve the data quality and interoperability. So not much else to be said about this, but when we go to the details, we can also discuss some of the features. Briefly about the content in bSDD, you can have definitions, you can have links between them, so you can form a hierarchy, you can have translations, you can have synonyms, you can define properties, like you can see here, color and weight. You can provide restrictions on those values. So for example, here I have 3 enumerated values like red, orange, and green for color. And you can also say that numerical value has to be greater than 0, and it has to follow this and this unit. So all of those things are almost directly coming from the ISO standards about data dictionaries, and we apply it in bSDD. Okay, how the technical solution works. So we have a database, bSDD database that stores many dictionaries, and we have API to both pull that data to your software and to upload that data to bSDD. We also have a search page, which is something on top of it, and management platform. You can use those, but you don't have to. They are just to help those that, for example, don't read the API and they want to have human interface. So we have the search page where you can look at the content from bSDD, and we also have the management platform if somebody wants to upload files manually and manage the content. For technical people, we have technical documentation on GitHub. I have a link. I can share the slides maybe later with you. But there you can read more about how the data is structured, what are the attributes. There are not many required attributes, but there are a lot of optional attributes. So all of this you can read on GitHub. And a few words how to create a data dictionary and upload it to bSDD. Yeah, one solution is to use third-party tools. There are, I only have slides of 2, but there are more. So you can use those and upload through their interface to bSDD, or you can upload JSON file manually through the management platform or through the API that we provide. We also have the Excel template to create a data dictionary. It's mostly for those that want to test, but they don't write JSON. So we have an Excel template that also works. And those are some of the ways you can do that. At the moment, there are around 61 organizations publishing in bSDD. If we include also our test environment, which I will cover in a moment, it's 160. But some of those organizations, they are just distributing content from other organizations. So if we count all of the dictionaries, that's hundreds already. Akka or CoBuilder, they have own accounts that distribute other dictionaries, or at least testing it. But the most used dictionaries right now are IFC, as Leon mentioned, eTeam, CCI, Uniclass. Those are the most used. And we are also discussing with other publishers to upload more content soon. A few words about the governance. So we don't own the data. It's owned by people that upload it, and we don't have we only have automatic validation of the content when you upload. So we are just checking the syntax and some very basic data quality checks, but we are not actually validating the content. So if you want to upload something that is not thoroughly tested and approved, it's up to you because you own your data. And we govern the service, that it is safe, stable, and easy to use. There were some questions, technical questions from you from before. I guess we can yeah, if you can repeat those questions later, we can cover them. But if not, then I assume they were solved. But just to say that, yeah, we are available worldwide. We have everything hosted on Azure. So yeah, if you have more questions, please ask. And the API that we provide, we have a REST API and GraphQL API. And the REST API allows you to both read and write to bSDD. And we provide many media types, like the most common JSON, but we also have RDF output that gives you result for most of the data, not all of it. But yeah, if you are interested in it, we can discuss. We also have interactive documentation on Swagger that you can check out and test how it works. And just a few slides, I'm finishing with the introduction. Because there were some questions from you before, and I also saw on the chat about bSDD and IFC. So first of all, I don't want to confuse you, but we also have IFC inside bSDD, but this is just the data dictionary of IFC. This is not the whole schema. So it's just the definition of classes and properties and property sets, but not the whole schema. So you don't have their relations. You don't have all of this technical things like how do you define geometry. It's just the data dictionary of IFC. And it is there to support translations. It is there to support linking to IFC from other dictionaries. And that's what we have in IFC. But bSDD can be also considered like a place for adding extensions to IFC. As I shown you before, IFC ter is very basic term, but maybe you need more specialized terms like this is not just IFC ter, but this is a monoblock ter, which is a specialized term for that particular ter. When it comes to technical connection between bSDD and IFC, this was already demonstrated by Leon. So you can use IFC classification to assign a class to IFC objects. You can use IFC in IFC property single value. For example, you have attribute for identifier. So that could be identifier coming from bSDD or other platform. And the same for material. You can also reference identifier in the IFC material. Sorry?
Like if you have IFC material, what is the?
Yeah.
What is the second?
In IFC material, I think it was called also identifier in 4.3. Maybe somebody can check. If not, it was the place for further details. And yeah. Okay.
Why not attach material properties? There are already properties.
You can attach properties, but this is just to provide more info, more context to that particular material. So
no, I mean, you can attach properties directly to material.
Yeah, you can. But those properties could also be referenced to bSDD. So yeah, property like texture or color could also be defined in bSDD, but this is just to reference what the timber means, because maybe the name itself is not enough for some and they want to have more context. So they can check that definition and see what this material is. They can read more about, for example, what are the, because sometimes we see that the name of the material is really confusing. That's why you can also reference this, but we haven't seen many use cases with materials yet. It's mostly bSDD is right now used for classes and properties, but yeah, this is how you can reference it. Okay, validation service. Will you also say a few words later about validation service, Evandro?
On bSDD? No.
Okay. Yeah. Just so you know, also validation service can check if your file contains references to bSDD, then it can check if those are correct and if those are valid, but this is work in progress. So let's maybe cover it next time we meet. And Same with IDS, it was already shown by Leon. So you can also use the URI in IDS to reference definitions from bSDD or other source. And existing integrations with bSDD, we have a few. I have here a few slides, a few pictures from interfaces like the ASBeam, Plannerly, Beamworks, and many prototypes that we have seen. But yeah, expect many more to come after this meeting. So that was the introduction. Now let's go to the updates. And first of all, I will repeat what also was said, that please add yourself to this list of software implementations so that you can tell others that you integrate with bSDD already, and we have 3 options. You can say that you use the read API to pull the data. You can also say that you have functionality to submit and manage the dictionary in bSDD, and also to export the IFC with bSDD information. So if you already integrate with bSDD, please use that link and add yourself to the list. Can anybody just add themselves, or they have to just claim and email us?
Yeah, so you can claim your tool, which some already did, and then it has to be approved by me, just to make sure that none of your competitors claim your tool. And then after you've claimed it, you should be able to edit. But as I said earlier, there are some issues with editing. But as you see, there's also people who did edit it by themselves. So it's a bit of a mystery still to us where we should tweak the security issues to make this happen at a self-service level.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, we can test it together these two days. And another announcement is that we are now trying in bSDD to put all of the updates and all of the planned updates as well on our forum. So there's a dedicated topic called bSDD Tech Updates. Maybe I will show it. Yeah, I hope you all know about bSDD, buildingSMART forum. This is how it looks, this topic. And there we announced all of the changes. Oh, you don't see the screen. Nice. Give me a second. So yeah, here we announced all of the changes. It was added recently, and I also want to hear your feedback if this is the way you would like to be notified or you need something else. But you can also be subscribed to this topic, so you can get email notification whenever there is any update planned or already implemented. And now I will go through most of the important updates that happened last month. So yeah, going back here. So one of the maybe insignificant update, but I think it's very important, is that now we have more strict version lifecycle management. And you can see the diagram explaining how the statuses work now. So right now you cannot upload a dictionary and say this is already active, which was possible before. Now, whatever you upload, it will always be in this preview first. And this preview means that this content is still work in progress, and it shouldn't be used for example, contractual agreements. And you can override the version as long as it is in this preview mode as many times as you want. Yeah, we will also improve the search page so that it clearly shows that this is not content that is actively maintained and to be used. But once you activate, and you can activate through the management portal, we have a button for that, or through the API. Once you activate, the content will stay in bSDD forever, except if we get a claim that it's violating some license, then we have to take it down. But if you activate, it will stay in bSDD forever. And the only way you can tell the users that this content is no longer supported or no longer should be used is to deactivate it. So that's the only thing you can do. But once you deactivate the content, it will still be there. So you can always use it in your contractual agreements. It will just indicate that maybe there is a newer version or this dictionary is no longer supported. And yeah, after you activate, you cannot delete the content. you can only delete the content before you activate it. And I think this is maybe a small change for implementers, but it's a huge change for users that were always asking about how they can guarantee that the content will be there if they apply it in contracts and if they have projects that last for years. And I think we can have like open discussion. If you have any comments or questions, feedback to those changes, please just raise a hand and we'll give you a mic. So any questions so far? Who has the mic?
I have a question to the relationship between IDS and bSDD. As far as I understand is that an IDS XML file can refer to bSDD. I'm not sure, is it also possible to store the information of IDS inside bSDD?
Very good question. Thank you so much. And the answer is the IDS is a standard for defining specification and requirements, and bSDD is a platform to distribute the definitions and properties, which also can allow to add restrictions. Like you can say that the color can only be white, black, or blue. So in bSDD, you can define those general definitions and values. In IDS, you can further restrict it for your particular purpose. Like, let's say bSDD says that the color can be white, blue, and black. And in IDS, you can also further specify that in your project, the color of, let's say, a door can only be white and black. The blue is not allowed. So in IDS, you can tweak those restrictions further down. But no, right now we don't have this exchange between bSDD and IDS. So you cannot, for example, take bSDD and download it as IDS, but we've got few requests that this would be a nice feature in the future. We are considering it, but those are two different things. One is a standard, the other one is a service that does a bit different thing. So it's not the same, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the status of the discussions with OmniClass, another commercial?
Yeah, good. Thanks. So it requires some also technical updates to bSDD to support it, because all of the classification systems that have paid licensing, they require from us that we also provide some form of like paywall. Right now, bSDD only has this, well, no, we already have this feature implemented, but we are still testing it with different pilot projects. But in the future, we want to also support those type of classification systems that will require you to log in and have access to, you need to have a license to read it, but it's still, it will take some time before we have it up and running for everyone, because the huge challenge is the user management. So if we want to have our own user database or use the external one, we are still discussing this. Would you like to add something? No, okay. Another question? Yeah, please.
I appreciate very much the last slide about the management of the version lifecycle, but I have additional remarks about a question about that. During the IC Bridge development, we have prepared a data dictionary for Bridge, mainly for information we are not embedded in the IC, both.
Yeah.
The point is now the following one. We want to have this part of the data dictionary managed by our French administration, which is here today, or could be the same question for Ashto.
Yeah.
So the question is that this part of the management is absolutely necessary. The question is the management of the modification. What is the protocol for that? Because technically you are right. I have no problem with that, but we need to prepare the update. So what is the protocol for preparing that? Because one thing is very important, that for me, data dictionary is part of the standard. It's an extension of the standard. We cannot dissociate the standard to that mechanically. And that is very important to have an authority to say even what you are saying about IDS and to combine what it is possible in IDS, what it has not be possible in IDS regarding requirements we have in the data dictionary.
Okay, yeah, thanks, good question. And maybe this is something that we should stress again. This is not the tool that has the whole ISO governance part. We are just distributing the dictionaries, and they can come from bodies like ISO, or they could be coming from, I don't know, NBS publishing Uniclass, or this type of bigger organizations. And they have already procedures for maintaining updates and so on. And they can use bSDD just to distribute the results, because even though they have own platform with bSDD, they can be accessible in more tools that integrate with bSDD. We are not, we offer also ways to upload without this, the whole, let's say maintenance procedures. You can just upload Excel or JSON file directly, but this is not in our scope. I think this is, important to stress that, there are tools that do it already, like the Cobbler or Semantics for Beam that support this type of things. But you can also just upload maybe list of your properties and materials that you use on your project, but you don't want to go through a loop of experts approving the content, and you just know that you want to use it because it brings value to your project. So this is what we have. Is that enough answer for your question? Okay. Yeah.
Artur?
Yeah.
I just want to mention that I'm working with the European Commission and within the construction product regulation, which is everything around the building blocks. And there is now suggested an article to implement the dictionary from the Commission's point of view. So that would mandate all software to use the same kind of ontology when we talk about on the product level and system level, like wall or window, whatever. So I just want to mention that.
Good, thanks, Lars. So I think it's the whole idea of integrated data dictionaries is that we can make relations and extend such trusted data dictionaries with our own needs. And bSDD is just one way to do that, but we can also
I just want maybe to explain that there are other softwares like SAP, which is not BIM software, that needs this. So the dictionary part is important for several, let's say, areas, actors needs for ontologies.
Yeah, I agree.
European Commission will define one ontology?
Yeah. On the CPR level, construction product level. So they define product categories and they list properties, units, measures, values. And this is a part of the change of the regulation, which is ongoing, coming. It's a regulation, it's a law. So that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, and I assume it's not caring about IFC properties. Well, bSDD is not strictly linked to IFC. You can use it, but you don't have to. We have some features that are strictly linked to IFC, but you don't need to use them. Okay, I think that exhausts this topic. We have a few more updates. Like one of them is mostly for those that already use bSDD heavily, and you are probably familiar with the test page that we have. We have both test search page, test API, test management platform, but we see that this is kind of overused. People start to use this test environment for actual projects, and that was not the intention. So right now we have this huge yellow sign saying this is not to be used for a project. This is just to test new features of bSDD before we implement them in the production environment. Just so you know, test environment is still there, but we are not actively encouraging people to use it because they can use the production environment with actual search page, actual database, and they can always set the status to preview and not activate it, and it acts as a form of test environment for them. Do you have any objections? Do you like the test and you want to keep using it for projects, please say no. Yeah, okay. Any questions about this?
There's another question in the chat before you go further. I might do that. How do you guarantee that the live and active information is not clashing with each other? Let's say two properties are part of the same property set, one active and the other inactive. Would it not create inconsistencies on instance level of a model? Can both be labeled as inactive by relation?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. Who am I to say which property is good? I don't know. So we don't really say that there can only be one height definition. There could be many. Maybe there is a height that has different meaning in Germany and else. Okay, then I didn't understand the question.
The answer is that the status is per domain.
Can you give? Yeah, that's okay. When we go back to the previous slide, that status is for the whole dictionary and not per each property. So even though in the ISO you can, you can basically keep the versioning of each property. We also support that in bSDD. You can have different versions for each concept, for each class or property, but the version of the whole dictionary will change if you have updates. This is because in your contractual agreement, you don't want to say, let's use this property in this version, this class in this version, and have a list of thousands of properties. You just want to say, let's use the dictionary of, let's say, EPD indicators from version 1.2, and this will be binding for our product. So that's how the versioning works. Yeah.
And how were properties shared among dictionaries?
Okay, so the question was, how do you maintain the relation between different properties in different versions, or?
No, I think the question is, if you have a property, if you have multiple properties in the same property set, properties from different domains, of which one property is active, the other is inactive, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, then it's a good practice to not use the inactive properties because they might change, and it's up to you to know if they are still there. So we recommend to only use the active content because somebody said that they approve it. If they said it's not active, then it's a warning sign. But if you want to risk, you can always use the latest feature, which I will also have a slide about.
Do you also have a slide about the status of other IFC versions next to 4.3?
Yeah.
Okay, because there was another question in the chat.
Yeah, okay. So we talked about test, then huge change, which doesn't affect many of you, but we decided almost at the beginning of the year that we will rename some terms like classification to class. Even though IFC uses a classification term, most of the world uses class. So that's what we will change. And we also change the name domain to a dictionary. So we will follow more the ISO standard. And also there was a clash with the buildingSMART rooms that were renamed to domains. So now we have, for example, the buildingSMART infrastructure domain. So that was conflicting with a domain in bSDD. So to avoid further confusion, we will just rename domains to dictionaries and classification to classes. And because it's a huge change and it will affect both the API and existing content, we will support both for quite a while. But we wanted to inform all of you that this change is about to happen. We will roll it out to the tests next month. That's why we waited for this general assembly to say it once again that we are about to do it. And your current integration will not break because we will support both the old and new API, and everything will be accessible in both. But please be aware of this and implement it if you are relying on it. Any questions about this? Okay, if you have, we can also talk later. Next change that could be breaking, but we are again supporting both old and new systems, is that in the past we used to have a dash between the name of dictionary in the version. Now we have a slash, and there are a couple of reasons for that, but if you use the dash, it will still work. So all of the old models that have the dash between the version and the name, they will just, when they go to that link, it will be transferred to the new, but it's not breaking change, but it's very big change for some. What it allows us is to use the latest feature that we already talked about, but also if I show you, can you see this? Yeah, you can. If I show you some example, now you are able to just, let's go here. Now you are able to just simply trim the URL and go to the version, and you can trim the version and you can go to the list of different versions. So now the URL is more, yeah, you can follow this breadcrumbs with this change. Yeah, that's about this. So now we followed some advices from the audience from the previous meetings from Rome and from the LDAC conference. And that's one of the changes, that now the page is no longer using this custom index, which was changing every now and then. Now we use the URIs to actually also browse through the search page, which is more intuitive, more user-friendly, and we hope it's, yeah, it benefits all of us. Any questions? No, okay. Next one, and again, you can read all of this on the forum. So we described all of this on the forum. You can comment on it. You can let us know what you think. And so the next change is that we now also implemented all of this status changes into the management platform. So now if you don't use any other third-party tools, or if you don't use the API, but you want to manually change, for example, the version, you can go to the management platform, log in, and there you will see those new buttons, like you can download the content, you can activate it, you can delete it if it's not activated. And if you have this feature already enabled, you can also turn dictionary to private so that people will not see it unless they log in and they have access given by you. So all of those new buttons were added recently, and they mostly affect those that use the publishing through the bSDD management platform. But for tools that also support uploading to bSDD, you have the new API. So I think I have a slide about that, but it's just few new requests about deleting, activating, changing status, and putting the content. And a question about this. Okay. Material. So until now we had materials. Well, we still have materials as a separate concept in bSDD, which is not a concept in ISO, and it doesn't really differ from a class. So what we are doing now is we announced this already like 6 months ago, but we are still doing it because it affects a lot of the systems and current API. So we want to take it slow, but we want all of you to be aware that what is now a material will be just a class of a type material. The same way we have a class of a type group of properties, it will be a class of a type material. So all of the existing content that uses the material will just be changed to a class of type material. And we have few dates here, like we plan to 12 months from now to stop supporting the old URI with MAT in it. Maybe we'll extend it if you need this, but from our test, there were only a few users ever using this. So, and those were very, yeah, proof of concept projects. So if you have any concerns with this, we can support it for longer, but any questions? Is it, yeah, I assume it's not maybe clear for all of you what the changes mean, because not all of you are integrating with bSDD, but for those that do, I hope it's clear. Yeah, and this is something I already said, that we are also changing the class types. Right now, we had also some class types that were conflicting with the rest of bSDD, like there was a class of type domain, but it really doesn't make sense if we have both the dictionary and the class of type dictionary now. It didn't really make sense, so we are reducing some types like reference document and domain, but we are also adding material. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, if you have questions, please just raise hand. This is the feature that we already talked about, so the latest version URL. And this we got many requests for. So until now, when you were using some terms from bSDD, you always had to put the version number. So you always had to know the version of that content. For example, 1.0.0. But let's say you have different use case and you always want to point to the latest height in IFC. Even though it might change meaning, the meaning might change in time, you want to always point to the latest one to be, not to have outdated content. So now instead of the version number, you can use latest, but a warning, if you use the latest instead of a version in your IFC models, and in 5 years, the owner of this content decides to change the meaning, it's your own risk. So yeah, use it at your own caution. Maybe I can show how it works, but you can all imagine how it works. So now, instead of, where's my mouse? Now, instead of putting the version number here, I just typed latest. But if I know the version number, I can always use 1.0.0, and I will get exactly the same page. But nice feature about this is that it doesn't show the inactive content. So if you deactivate content, it will show the latest active content, or if you don't have any active content, it will show the preview as well, so that you find something. But this is how it works, and I don't know if it doesn't really affect software implementation because it's up to users to how they specify this. But if you have Anouk, can you have Mike?
Press the button.
I don't think so. Maybe it's.
Yeah, I think it's working now. Do you always need a version in your UI?
Yes. So you need either a version or latest.
Okay, because we also uploaded things without a version. So.
Okay, because you're using your own custom UI.
Yes.
And this is something that only applies to bSDD generated URI. Because your URI, like any of the software implementation or bSDD, is not able to read your page because we don't have the same standard, let's say, and that's why this only applies to bSDD. So we will not resolve your link and get the data from Waternet.
Yeah, okay. Otherwise, we have to change our own.
Yeah, and this goes back to the discussion on ontologies and bSDD. Yeah. So you can squeeze ontology into bSDD, but you will lose some of the custom relations. And it's bSDD is only simplified data, because otherwise we would need to have software integrations that are almost impossible to implement, because ontology can be, there's so much freedom you can have. So yeah. Okay, few more. So we implemented a couple of suggestions from the linked data community, such as the resolvable URLs that you can trim to explicate the domain versions. So now you cannot have a version called A or B. Now the only allowed values are those that you see. So you can only have 1 digit, 2 digits, or numbers, not digits. Again, it's not a big change for most, but it affects all of us. We improved the language content negotiation in the API so that you can also ask for different languages. We improved the GraphQL endpoint. I say partially because we didn't include all, because we are not using linked data database. We are not having everything in a triple store. We have SQL database, so not all was possible, but we are thinking about this maybe next year. But still, you can use the GraphQL. It allows you to look at all of the content as well. We also improved the RDF output, and we added missing URLs for classification property, class relation, property relation. Before, those were just pages without any identification. Now they do have. I don't see any use case for using that, but if you want to have reliable links to those, you can also use it now. And yeah, we removed some of the class types and classes. What else? Yeah, and the rest is about third page improvements. And we added something that I already demonstrated, that now you can also go to the page for organization, for dictionary, for version page, and you can look at different versions and compare. Just bear in mind that if you open IFC dictionary, it will take a minute to load because we are working on optimizing the search experience, but this is not our primary focus. So primary focus for us is reliable database and API, and the search page is a bonus, let's say. So yeah, if you want to, in your contracts, for example, add a link to your dictionary or your organization, then you can do it now with the new URIs. And the attributes that you will see on the page, they depend on what you specify on your upload. So if you don't specify some attributes, you will not see them. So we don't show the empty ones, but those are just cosmetics. Any questions so far? Okay, then the ISO mapping. So we got a couple of requests how the people should interpret some of the terms from bSDD when they are already compliant with ISO standards. So we started doing this mapping table on GitHub, and we are still working on it. We got some feedback from some of you, and probably we will release it soon to general public. But if you want to have a look at it, let us know, and we will send you the link. But in this table, we basically compare different attributes from bSDD and the 2 or the 3 ISO standards, and we explain a bit why sometimes there is a difference, or why something was added to bSDD that is not in the ISO to support which use cases. That's more or less the case. The API is different, and there is a reason for that. So yeah, we can spend some time if you want in the breaks. But now I have a couple of questions to you, because there are some things that are not yet, there's no one answer to them, such as, this is an example that how do you apply properties to elements? Because right now in most integrations that we saw, like the SketchUp, the ASBeam, or mostly those two, I think Beam works as well. You cannot add a property from bSDD without assigning a class. And of course, there are many use cases that people just want to have properties without class. So do you have maybe any ideas? Maybe, we have people from ACA here, or I don't know if DD-based people are not here. But do you understand this problem first? And do you have any ideas how this could be solved? Because we are not saying explicitly how this should be done in software, because we just provide this data. But how you use it, it's up to you. But I think it's good that we all discuss what's the desired implementation in the software.
Be able to access all the properties of a domain.
Can you repeat to the mic? Yeah.
In my opinion, you should be able to access all properties provided into a domain or new name dictionary.
Yeah, and this is what, for example, Plannerly does. So in Plannerly, you can ask for any property without caring about the class of the object. So we can just add properties. And this is more for the IFC editing tools like ASBeam, that right now you need to have the class first before you add properties. But I think it's a good idea to allow to add properties as well, independently of anything else.
Yeah, I agree. We do the same. The thing is, if you want to use an object from a data dictionary, bSDD or whatever else, and you just realize that you are missing some properties which are available in this data dictionary, then you can do nothing
Yeah.
except going back to the data dictionary owner and ask to add it. So you will have to wait for days and maybe more. But if you just let the user saying, well, I know that this property is relevant for this object, why not letting him use it?
Yeah, that's one of the things. But again, it's not up to us. I think we don't plan to have this in our documentation because it's up to the implementation. But I think it's good to have like one approach in all of the softwares. Before we get many, I think it's good to discuss. But this is something we can also talk about later if you have some ideas. Okay, anybody else would like to say something about this? We have some time. Can you give? Yeah. Wait, I don't hear you.
So the question is the representation of ISC classes with predefined type. This model does own classes bSDD, which is reasonable. However, from an IFC schema point of view, it is a class with a classification property, predefined type equal XYZ.
Yeah.
So are there plans to further harmonize with the IFC schema?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. Right. Yes. Right now, if we go to, let's go to IFC furniture. Yeah, if we go to IFC furniture, you will see that below there are subclasses like the IFC furniture bed, IFC furniture chair. Yeah, and they are separate classes. And there was the idea to, instead of classes, have a property with enumerated list of possible values. So it's still an IFC furniture, but with a property type chair. But I think this is a more general question to IFC because I know there was, some proposal to change it in future IFCs. So maybe this is more something we could cover tomorrow with IFC 5 or IFC 4.3. I don't know.
No, we need to cover it now. We need to use it. We are using it in
Yeah.
projects.
Okay, so let's discuss it now. Evander, do you have some comments?
No, I'm eager to listen opinions of the vendors implementing that.
Yeah, so I think first question is, in the ideal scenario, would you like this IFC types to be subclasses of, for example, IFC chair to be subclass of IFC furniture, or just an attribute like a type like it is in IFC?
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this tomorrow, but in the future, these should all just be classes. Because everybody has new classes all the time.
Yeah.
Full stop. But that's not a today problem. That's a tomorrow problem.
Yeah, but today it's not. So I think that's how we have this confusion in bSDD. But we also have a slide. No, we don't. But about uploading like older version of IFC to bSDD and also improving IFC 4.3 because we are missing few properties on purpose. So yeah, this is something we are discussing, if we should have it as subclasses or just a separate property with enumerated lists. And I think this is something we should do. Do you all agree, or do you understand this problem? Okay, so yeah, again, we have 2 days. If you want to raise it again, we probably have some more time, but I agree with Greg. Yeah, Greg?
I was just going to say that the problem today is somebody could actually classify something that's not a class in IFC, right?
Yeah.
So that's clearly a problem.
Yeah, plus this, they can classify something as IFC furniture chair, but not specify the predefined type in IFC. So then it's like a bit of misuse of IFC.
Right. One's broken, one just doesn't work. Broken is worse than doesn't work. Right.
But I think important to mention, bSDD is not how you should implement IFC. You should implement IFC schema, and bSDD is just providing the terms so that it's easier to link, for example, uniclass or eTeam to IFC concepts. And that's why it was done like that in the first place. So that people from uniclass, they can say that their definition of a chair is IFC furniture chair equivalent. And you cannot do that if we just turn it into a property of, yeah. Okay, I don't think we can resolve it right now, but I agree with idea that this is not the desired thing. Okay, going back to something also a bit disturbing is yeah.
In the chat there came like, what is the correct way then? Just repeating the chat.
Yeah,
what would be the correct way?
It's about translations. We already covered that. I'll follow up on that. We only have 15 minutes left before lunch and our presentation, so we need to speed up a bit. Sorry.
Is it a new question or the one from before?
It's how you should do translations. It comes from Matthias.
Okay. Yeah, I have a slide. Yeah. Okay. What about dictionaries that extend other dictionaries, which is a very common thing that people make a dictionary that extends existing IFC. For example, they have dictionary of furniture that extends the list of only 5 or 8 possible furnitures in IFC. So right now we see that many implementations like Plannerly and ASBIM, they only allow one dictionary to be used at a time. So then they need to, for example, in Plannerly, you have to select dictionary first before you can use concepts from that dictionary. So if somebody wants to say that in this project, they are following, let's say, custom dictionary of furniture together with IFC, right now, some software implementation doesn't allow it. And there is a good reason for that, because there was supposed to be one dictionary at the time. But we have many requests that people want to have combination. And I think good example is CCI classification. They have an international core and they have national extensions. Like there could be a term called, I don't know, a bridge that is international, but they have different sub-concepts for bridges in Denmark, in Estonia, and Czech Republic. So do you have, what do you think should be the desired implementation, desired solution in the software for using dictionaries that extend other dictionaries?
What is the problem?
The problem is that in bSDD, you can easily make those extensions. So you have IFC, and then you have some other dictionary that says that all of these concepts are children of IFC concepts. So these extensions are possible in bSDD. But then if you have software that implements bSDD, it doesn't allow to use combination of multiple dictionaries, because you have to first choose which dictionary you want to follow. And these relations are then, let's say, broken. It's I think, yeah.
The problem of bSDD or of the implementation of bSDD?
I think it's an implementation, but maybe it's something we should agree what's the desired implementation, because this wasn't discussed before. So yeah, I think one of the solutions would be that whenever there is a relation to something higher in the hierarchy, it should also be accessible. But right now with the interfaces we know, it's not really possible to implement this way. For example, yeah, in Plannerly or in Akka, after you choose the dictionary, you cannot have like other dictionaries there as well.
Just a question to clarify the problem. You said initially that you change domain by dictionary. You are speaking about that.
Not change the name, but like extend, add subclasses.
So that it means that now, when you are speaking of bridge, you are not speaking for domain of bridge, you are speaking of dictionary of bridge. Okay?
Yes.
But in dictionary of bridge, we never describe anything about pavement. So pavement, you have pavement in the bridge. So if you want to use properties regarding pavement, you have to make link with another one dictionary when you have the property of the bridge.
Yeah.
So it means that in this case, for bridge, we need to be able to refer to several dictionaries.
Okay, but for example,
if not, we have a problem.
Yeah, it's possible right now, but the way it works right now in for example those two tools is that you have to go back to a different screen and change the dictionary applied to your model. and you can have multiple dictionaries, like multiple classes from multiple dictionaries, but it's not supported in the interfaces at the moment. And yeah, I think it should, but I don't know what's the best solution for this, like how to implement it, for example, for the CCI, that they can use in a project the Danish version with the core version, so that when they want to have a drop-down list with possible properties, they will have a drop-down list that has both Danish and the core, but not the Estonian one or Czech. So it's mostly about the implementation here.
I was just wondering, is that the bSDD API that prevents this from happening? Relating to different? No, it's the implementation.
It's implementation, but yeah, the API request would require a few calls to get those, because you have separately the relations, and then you need to follow those calls. But so the API should give a list of both. Where's the microphone? Yeah.
Some other ARCA people, not this. Okay.
Maybe I can.
Yeah, it's Andrea. BSD API should manage it. If a dictionary A extends dictionary B, bSDD API should return the correct dictionary.
So the combined dictionaries.
I guess the requirement is also for not combined dictionaries. Like I have two dictionaries that are of use of my use case. They're not connected, but I want to use them both.
Yeah, then you have to switch dictionary, because then you intentionally want to use something different, right? But a case with something that depends on something else, it's yeah, okay, this could be solved with the API. Maybe we need a separate flag if you want to also have this dependent dictionaries.
Because current API can return only one dictionary per request.
And then you can see relations, and by tracking the relations, you can get the parent dictionary as well.
Got it.
I'm not sure that's so easy to fix it in the API.
No,
because
that would be a completely new call. Yeah.
Yeah, but don't forget that you will have private data dictionaries. So if you try to fix it through the API, you will have to check many things, and you open a real Pandora box. If it's on the user side, they know what they have access to.
Yeah.
So this has to be thought, because not sure that's so easy to fix it on API side.
Yeah, good. So, so I think we can sleep on it and discuss it next time we have a meeting. But yeah, I'm happy to test it with those that are interested in this afterwards. But yeah, there are no easy solutions to this, I think. No. Was that the question that was on the chat, or something else? Okay. Then I'm close to finish. There was the question today on the chat about the translations. Short answer is that if you have translations, they are just human readable translations, and the actual machine interpretable names from IFC, for example, will remain this computer machine interpretable names. So if you translate IFC wall to Band in German, it's still IFC wall in the schema, and it's still IFC wall in the file. The same goes for properties. If you have a height in IFC, you can have translations in dictionary, so that when you go to the page, you can see what is the definition and name in different language. But in the model, it will still be height, because this is a code that we are using. And I think maybe this should be better explained in the documentation. But yeah, I think that's maybe my opinion, but it shouldn't be allowed to have a Polish name for height and still say this is a IFC property set, because it's not anymore, right? It's a different term. And
what if the English name is missing?
In IFC, for example? Yeah, then you just invented a new one.
I uploaded French.
Yeah.
properties, right?
Yeah.
So I'll have a
Well,
French name in the IFC.
well, yeah, but this is not IFC property. It's a custom property that you added to your.
Also, this only goes for the.
Yeah, this is just for the translation of IFC. Well, this applies to any other dictionary, but yeah, as long as you're adding something new, then you have a new dictionary, and you can always use, for example, French as your default language, and then you have a French terms that could be translated to English, but then the French is the code that you use in the model, right? Yeah, yeah.
Hope so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I would say is the only good solution. But if anybody has different opinion, we can discuss.
Yeah, it should maybe just to, we have the coincidence that the computer interpretable code in IFC is also English. So when there's a property called height, that's the computer understands what that is when you implement it correctly. It's a coincidence almost that a human also understands it because it's in English, but we should really see that as the computer code, and then you have the translation of that code, the English name of that code, which is height, and you have a Polish name and a Dutch name, etc., etc. So when you want to do translations, you add a translation to that code that is standardized. You're not going to add a new property with a different name because that's a new property with a different name. So we don't want to duplicate properties that the computer doesn't understand. We keep the code that the computer understands, and then we add the different translations to it. And translations in bSDD is really something that you can upload separately. It's not a separate domain. It's really a translation on the same domain.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think this one is, yeah. We all agree that you can have a French height, but it's no longer IFC height in this case. Yeah, a few words about next steps. So we are working on many things. One of them is to automate and also add those legacy IFC schemas, maybe not legacy, but previous ones. Plus translations. We have long and then very labor-intensive, let's say, translation process. We have dedicated platform. We have many people who contributed with translations. We have approval process, voting, and so on. But once this is accepted, like the translation, for example, to Italian, then it will be automatically also uploaded to bSDD, and you will see translations. But adding other schemas is a bit more difficult because they are not following the same. We don't have the same technical solution as in IFC 4.3, but we are working on adding other IFC versions. We are improving the search experience, improving the documentation. After we improve those two, we will also add some training materials, so it's easier to start with bSDD. And then we have this hen and egg problem that's, if we should first focus mostly on the publishers, software implementations, or users, but I think it will organically grow when we have, when we improve those things that need improvement. But also we are thinking about some new features, like the one that we discussed with restricted content that has a paywall or something. Maybe in the future we'll add more, maybe paid features, but they are not our primary focus now. We have plenty of things to do first. And those are just few things on our board that I wanted to show. And with 2 minutes left, are there any other topics you want to raise? Because we have not enough time now, but maybe we can cover them also later. Any other questions, topics on the chat?
Artur, and sorry for asking because I should know, but I do not. Could you elaborate a bit on the commercial conditions by which these services that you are providing can be contracted? In other words, say I am an infrastructure owner, or I am a general contractor. I'd like to have for a project specific my own dictionary set up within the bSDD. How do I contract you? Number one. And number two, say I am a US customer. Can I request that this be hosted in the US?
Okay. Yeah, I can start. yeah, see Leon has also something to add. So to start, it's free to both publish and access the data, as long as this is publicly available data, not restricted, because that's a separate thing. But yeah, right now we are not planning to charge for this basic functionality, and we are not, for example, having experts that review the content. That's why we try to keep it. Yeah. So Leon, I think you wanted to add? No.
I actually just wanted to take the microphone away from Michel because I'm hungry. but if you want me to add, so yeah, the basic functionality is free. If you publish data that is freely available for others, you can upload it for free. If you want to publish private domains with access control, then you can have a contract. So you just contact Artur and you say what you want, and we make a price. And also, we're actually getting requests from Asia area already that they want to host it there. We're getting requests from people who want to be 100% or 99.9% sure that this is always available online. So they want to have an SLA agreement. All of that is available. Yeah, we have some principal policies for that, but mainly it's a one-to-one contract. So also US hosting is in the picture if you want. So this is usually the time where I say there's no other questions. And if there are other questions, you know where to find Artur now, because this is Dan's moment to inform you about lunch.
Okay, perfect. Then we will go for lunch. We're going to do a group photo first as well. So we will follow Pedro this way to do the group photo, and then we'll go straight through to lunch. Does everyone have a token for lunch?
And is this room, is it going to be locked? Can we leave stuff here or?
Can we lock it?
And just also one final comment. So we skipped the implementers part. That's going to be after lunch, just a couple minutes. And a bit of a warning. So after lunch is going to be even more technical. Feel free to join, but just for you to be aware of that as well.